Chapter 1813. The stage of the Galaxy tournament had been reinforced by a professional array master, and the strength of the explosion was extremely high. However, just as Ling Li rushed over with a roar, the entire stage collapsed in an instant, and the cracks spread out to the spectator stands. Shwa! Shwa! In an instant, the audience all retreated, and the scene almost went out of control. Gu Tianqing stood up. He didn't want to hide, but he stared with wide eyes at the stage filled with air and dust, muttering, "How is this possible?" Pa Jun Changshao took out a lighter, lowered his head, and lit a cigar. Then, he blew out a smoke ring and smiled. Comfortable. Whoosh whoosh. At this moment, a gust of wind blew through the venue, blowing away the air and dust. The situation inside was clear at a glance. He Woody stood in place. His legs were spread apart, as if he was in a horse stance. His right fist pressed down, and the distance from the ground, oh, no, there was no ground because the stage had fallen apart, and there was a pit under his feet. He Woody's style just now was dead fish eyes, but now it was a super realistic style. His whole face was incomparably resolute, and there was no calmness or indifference. There was only one word to describe its seriousness. Where was Ling Li? The pit was 100 feet deep. His whole face was sunken in the mud, and the goosebumps on the back of his head were about to rush out from the inside. Shwa! He Woody waved his hand, pulled him out and raised him high. You're here to be abused. These few words were still very plain, but together with the current action, it could be called the best pretentious scene for a disciple of the sect of all times. Li Tian, who was lying on the ground, raised his camera with difficulty and pressed the shutter. Junior brother. Su Xiaoma and the others gave him a thumbs up. Awesome. Everyone knew he Woody, and they also knew that Li Tian was abused, which made him very angry. However, they never thought that he would be so serious that he would kill his opponent with one punch, and, after his opponent had used his trump card, when he was at his most confident. Lu Qianqian's abuse could only be considered physical abuse. He Woody's abuse was not only physical abuse, but also psychological abuse. You activated your bloodline. You became stronger and more arrogant. One punch. Lie on the ground and don't move. It could be said that he Woody's punch had displayed his own high profile. It was also the strongest and most satisfying punch he had made in the Star System tournament so far. Jun Changshao felt great. The readers also felt good. However, Ling Li couldn't feel happy because after taking Solemn's punch, his confidence, his pride, and his persistence were all shattered. He couldn't hold on any longer and fainted. Shwa! He Woody casually threw the kid out. The referee quickly regained his senses and announced loudly, "The winner is he Woody." Who? Jun Changshao took a few puffs of his cigar before leaning back on his chair and blowing out smoke rings. The most trusted disciple acted as me, but the most unreliable disciple didn't act as me. Seeing Ling Li being carried away, Yi Xingqian was so angry that he performed a set of military boxing. Then, he rushed towards he Woody, who was walking off the stage, and roared, "Why didn't you leave it for me?" Because. He Woody stopped and said, "I am also a member of the sect of all times." These words made Yi Xingqian calm down. He turned around and said, "You and I will meet in the finals. We must treat each other seriously." Okay. He Woody said. Yi Xingqian's lips curled up into a devilish smile. Buzz! Buzz! In front of the broken arena, dozens of array formation masters were repairing it. All the contestants looked at he Woody with fear in their eyes. Without a doubt, Solemn's punch that instantly defeated Ling Li made Go Sheng, who had always pursued a low profile, the most handsome boy in the arena. Invincible. Jun Changshao clasped his hands together and said, as expected of the last disciple of the sect of all times. Perhaps everyone thought that closing the door was more like a joke. In fact, he Woody's performance today perfectly explained what it meant to be a last disciple. Jun Patriarch. Gu Tianqing gave him a thumbs up and said, your disciple is too valiant. He Woody had been slapped in the face again in the battle between Ling Li and Ling Li. Although it hurt, he was happy. After all, winning against the adopted son of the Sky Devil Emperor meant that his strength was tyrannical. He would definitely be able to get good results in the finals. Uncle Gu had previously thought that if the disciples of the Sect of All Times advanced to the finals, as long as they could get into the top 1,000, they would be able to cross the heavens. Now, he estimated that they would be in the top 100, or even the top 100. What made him so confident was that Ling Li was the adopted son of the Sky Devil Emperor. If he could kill him with one punch, how could most of the opponents in the finals be able to fight against him? The Sect of All Times disciples' bullying of the wolves was over. However, the galaxy's main competition was not over yet. They still had to continue fighting. For now, after defeating the adopted son of the Sky Devil Emperor, the most threatening people on the field were Jian Xiaohong, Nangong Qingxian, and a few other top geniuses. On the other hand, the only eliminated disciples of the Sect of All Times were Li Tiantian, Su Xiaoma, and Lu Chanshan. The situation was very favorable to Go Sheng. Nonsense. Next. The battle was very exciting. First of all, Jing Ji, who cleaned toilets for many years but never gave up on cultivation, was directly KO'd by Jian Xiaohong. Secondly, the toilet boss, Mao Xiaodao, was blasted out of the arena by the body cultivator genius. Chapter 1814. Tai Haoxia. It was the body cultivator who put down the stone and shook the ground. There were not many scenes of him fighting, and not many people paid attention to him, but Xiao Ziji was always paying attention to him. Similarly, Nangong Qingxian was also paying attention to Lu Chanshan. Unfortunately, the other party admitted defeat and did not have a chance to fight. The battle between Xiao Ziji and Tai Haoxia began. The two of them did not have fancy martial arts, nor did they have gorgeous body techniques. What they had was only the body fighting at its peak, so their fight was particularly powerful and full of masculinity. In the Dragon and Tiger hegemony competition, Xiao Ziji and Zhao Dazhuang once fought. It was also a duel between body cultivators, so the scene was too lazy to be written. Everyone could use their imagination to fill in the gaps. Of course, it was necessary to say it. The battle scene of the geniuses of the upper universe would definitely be more exciting. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. The shadows of fists and kicks filled the air, and the battle became more and more intense. The two outstanding body cultivators wrestled with each other. Even the sweat that dripped from their bodies was filled with masculine energy. He still remembered that the fans of the geniuses often said, "Do you know how hard my idol works?" In fact, Xiao Ziji and Tai Haoxia were the real hard-working ones. They did not have a handsome appearance, nor a charming smile, but every time they fought, every collision was full of the most masculine side. Of course, this was an era that looked at faces. But the strong ones who were full of masculinity and acting skills were still respected by the world. Cultivating with a high fever of 90 degrees. Still persisting in cultivation with a broken leg. Xiao Ziji and Tai Haoxia could really do it. In a battle between body cultivators, the winner and loser depended on who could not hold on and who was the first to be exhausted. Obviously, Xiao Ziji was better in this aspect. After all, as a member of the Sect of All Times, he had many ways to torture himself. So, after a few hours of fierce fighting, from day to night, and from night to morning, when the fighting stage collapsed beyond recognition, Tai Haoxia sat down weakly and said, "You won." He had no strength left. On the other hand, Xiao Ziji's eyes were burning, and his fighting spirit did not retreat at all. He said, "I haven't fought enough." Tai Haoxia's mouth twitched. Ever since he was young, he had undergone extremely strict physical cultivation training. He didn't expect that there would always be someone better than him. He had met an even stronger physical cultivation expert. If there's a chance," Tai Haoxia said with difficulty, "I hope we can meet again in the finals." It didn't matter if they lost one match, because they could still participate in the losers competition. As long as they could squeeze into the top 20, they could still represent the Blue Cloud Department to participate in the Universe Sacred War Finals. Yeah! Jing Ji and Mao Xiaodao, who were hugging each other, became spirited and said, "We can fight in the revival match. We will still have the chance to clear our names." However, thinking about how eldest senior sister, third junior brother, Zhou Hong, and the rest of their fellow disciples were in the losers group, they immediately hugged each other and cried, "I don't think there's much hope." "The winner is Xiao Ziji," the referee announced loudly. Jun Changshao was not surprised by this result at all. He calmly sat down and waited for the other matches to end before continuing to draw lots to choose his opponent. For now, there weren't many participants left in the arena, and the top 10 would be decided soon. The participants in the Sect of all times were He Wudi, Yi Xingchen, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, Li Fei, Tian Qi, and the others. The number was still acceptable. Not bad. We should be able to exceed the quota. Jun Changshao was very pleased. Luckily, he had signed up so many disciples on a whim. Otherwise, if he had sent a few disciples, there would have been no spots left. The Sect of all times had many matches, so the chances of them being drawn increased greatly. For example, in the next round, Song Xianzhou would be paired with Long Xiang, and Yang Yuhua would be paired with Ling Yuanxue. Fuck! Jun Changshao stood up and roared, "Shady!" For disciples were paired together, which meant that two of them had to be eliminated. He couldn't accept this, and even suspected that the officials were manipulating things behind the scenes. Gu Tianxing pressed him back into his seat and said, "The Universe Sacred War is very sacred, there won't be any shady deals." "Impossible." Jun Changshao said, "As long as it's a competition, there will definitely be shady deals. Maybe Spinach is manipulating things behind the scenes." Gu Tianxing was speechless. There were only 100 or so contestants left, and your disciples alone took up 20% of the spots. It was normal for them to be paired together. Sigh. No wonder Go Sheng. It was mainly because Su Xiaoma and Lu Qianqian had put on an illusion. As long as it wasn't beneficial to the sect, they would suspect that someone was deliberately framing them. The four Sect of all times disciples went up one after another. They didn't use rock paper scissors to decide the winner. Instead, they fought seriously. The winners were Long Xiang and Ling Yuanxue. The Sect of all times female disciples were quite impressive. Because Mu Honglian also won and entered the next round. Reader, if you say another familiar female disciple's name, I'll give you a vote immediately. Boom! At this time, a loud explosion came from another arena. The referee hurriedly raised his hand and announced, "The winner is Yao Menjing." The competition continued. The number of contestants continued to decrease until there were only 20 left. The Sect of all times had advanced to the next round: Li Qingyang, He Wudi, Yi Xingchen, Xiao Ziji, Li Fei, Long Xiang, Ling Yuanxue, Mu Honglian, and Yao Menjing. The disciples who weren't mentioned and were in the top 45 were either defeated by top geniuses or by fellow disciples. The corner of Gu Tianxing's mouth twitched. It was almost time to decide the rankings, and there were still 9 people in the Sect of all times. No. There were actually 10 people. Because there was still Gu Zhaoxi. This little guy who looked like he was only in his teens made it to the top 20 without showing anything in the eyes of the audience. Jun Changshao became particularly nervous. At present, as long as the draw was reasonable, the disciples could completely avoid the internal battle. The winner would obtain 10 tickets to the Holy War, which was equivalent to completing the epic mission 5 times more than usual. Contestants, please draw your lots. The referee shouted. Jade Emperor, Buddha, Tathagata Buddha, Taishang Lao Jun, Guanyin Bodhisattva, please bless us. Jun Changshao put his hands together and turned into a devout believer as he prayed. Number 1, Yao Menjing. Number 2, Nangong Qingxian. Number 3, He Wudi. Number 4, Jian Xiaohong. Number 5, Xiao Ziji. Number 6, Yi Xingchen. When Jun Changshao heard number 5 and number 6, he collapsed on the spot. How can these two good friends be placed together? Number 7, Li Fei. Number 8, Long Xiang. Fuck. Jun Changshao held his head and said, it's another group. Number 10, Li Qingyang. Number 11, Long Xiang. Gou Sheng collapsed on the chair. Number 12, Mu Honglian. Number 13, Triple X. Number 14, XXXX. Number 15, Ling Yuanxue. Number 19, Gu Zhaoxi. Number 20, Triple X. When the referee finished calling out the contestant numbers, except for Nangong Qingxian and Jian Xiaohong, the other top geniuses didn't even deserve to have their names. Even if they were given a Doraemon character, it would be fine for him to meet Night Emperor. Looking at the overall matchup, Jun Changshao was quite satisfied. As long as the disciples won, they would at least get 7 tickets to the Holy War. Babies. Go Leftover stood up and said loudly, get serious. Chapter 18:15. The interstellar tournament had reached a critical moment. Jun Changshao's first wish was not for his disciples to win the championship, but for them to enter the top 10 and obtain more tickets to enter the Holy War. This way, he could complete the epic mission. To put it bluntly, Gou Sheng did not want to be stuck. He wanted to enter the divine realm. Based on the current allocation, there were 2 groups in the sect's internal battle. They had already obtained 2 tickets. But it was not enough. He was greedy and wanted more. After all, the reward for exceeding the quota was more abundant. Number 1 Yao Menjing, number 2 Nangong Qingxian, fight. The referee shouted. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yao Menjing and Nangong Qingxian flew up. This Daoyuan sect's eldest disciple was still the same. He always had a smile on his face. He was obviously an ice cultivator, but he did not make people feel cold. Humph, Yao Menjing rolled her eyes and said, from the moment you entered the arena, you have been peeping at eldest senior sister. Shameless. Nangong Qingxian was speechless. That's right, he was observing Lu Qianxian, but it was only because they were both ice cultivators. Mississippi, Nangong Qingxian said, you misunderstood. I'm warning you. Yao Menjing glared at him and said, don't have any improper thoughts about eldest senior sister. Nangong Qingxian was depressed. In this woman's eyes, he was a lecher who coveted beauty. TCH on the spectator stand, the Daoyuan sect's disciples were unhappy. My eldest senior brother is the strongest disciple in the history of the Daoyuan sect. The girls who are infatuated with him can line up to the foot of the mountain. Why would he care about a female disciple of the sect of all times? Yao Menjing waved her hand and said, let's start. Excuse me. Nangong Qingxian was still very polite. However, after saying this, the smile on his face was replaced by seriousness. He immediately waved his sleeves and instantly condensed sharp icicles. Whoosh! Whoosh! The cold light flickered and burst forth. Whoosh whoosh! When Nangong Qingxian made his move, an icy aura filled the entire stage. The ground was quickly covered with a layer of ice. This was the most common tactic used by ice elementalists to seal off the field. It would bring negative effects to the opponent. Pang pang pang. Yao Menjing, who was in the ice rink, didn't care at all. She poured her monstrous demonic aura into her fist, breaking all the icicles that were attacking her. She smiled and said, your cold aura is far inferior to my eldest senior sister's. Really? Nangong Qingxian smiled as he raised his right hand and made a gesture in the air, combine. Ka ka ka. Ka 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 ka. In an instant, the layer of ice on the ground seemed to have been lifted up by a shovel. It quickly closed in on Yao Menjing, forming a cage-like layer of ice. Boom! Boom! Yao Menjing gathered her magic power and bombarded the ice that was spreading from all directions. However, she was still helpless and was finally trapped in it. It's over. The Daoyuan sect disciples said excitedly. As far as they knew, as long as their eldest senior brother's cage of extreme frost was able to bind the target, there was no possibility of it being broken through. Everyone broke out in cold sweat. Whoosh! On the stage, Yao Menjing broke out of the ice and floated to the ground. Her body was surrounded by a majestic demonic aura. Her originally clear eyes had become abnormally coquettish at this moment. Demonic cultivator? Nangong Qing Xian frowned. Ha! Gu Tianqing fell into deep thought and said, could this girl be a descendant of the demonic clan? Jun Changshao was stunned and said, Uncle has also heard of the demonic clan? This is an ancient clan that was extremely prosperous hundreds of thousands of years ago. Later, for some unknown reason, it suddenly collapsed and fell into decline, Gu Tianqing said. No wonder. Jun Changshao suddenly understood. In fact, he had always been puzzled. That was, why did the demonic clan in the upper realm have such superb forging and alchemy skills? Now that he heard Gu Tianqing's words, he understood that his predecessor was once a powerful clan. Speaking of which, Jun Changshao looked up at the sky and said, is the demonic ancestor still alive? Perhaps everyone had forgotten this person. It was necessary to remind them that the innate saint demonic body that Yao Menjing inherited was his, the million demon army in the eternal world was his, and Yixingchen's perfect body was his. That's right. He was the ancestor who gave away wealth. Previously, he was embarrassed by Jun Changshao. His soul broke free and merged into the universe's starry sky. Coincidentally, he was caught by the people of the star spirit world and placed in a physical body. He thought that the king had returned, but he was beaten away and there was no news of him since. He should be in the star spirit world, Goshing said, I will definitely go to this world, so there will be a day when we meet again. Boom! Boom! The sound of the battle on the stage pulled him back to reality. He looked over and saw Yao Menjing unleashing her innate saint demonic body. She turned from a pure girl into a cold demon and launched a devastating attack. Nangong Qingxian frequently dodged and seemed to be at ease, but he became more and more embarrassed. He was very depressed. Because the condensed ice rink had no effect on Yao Menjing. The male disciples of the sect of all times didn't have much contact with their eldest senior sister. Female disciples like Lu Wancher and Ling Yuanxue were together almost every few days, so they were considered experienced in the battlefield. What's more, Lu Chanxian wasn't as cold as before. Occasionally, she would teach her junior sister as a senior sister. Yao Menjing benefited the most. He even went to Bing Zhongtian to find her. After a while, her resistance to the ice attribute naturally increased. Simply put, after spending a long time with Lu Chanxian, her ice attribute and resistance naturally increased. If the sect of all times disciples attribute pain was opened, they would all have ice resistance plus 20%. Yao Menjing, who had more contact with their eldest senior sister, would have at least plus 50%. At the bottom of the attribute pain, there was a special attribute called face that increased by 100%. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yao Menjing turned into a demon and monstrous demonic energy condensed into a giant. She chased after Nangong Qingxian and hammered him until he kept retreating. Finally, he left the stage. The Daoyuan sect disciples who came to cheer all collapsed. Our sect's most outstanding disciple actually lost to this little demon and didn't even enter the top 10. Swoosh! Gu Tianqing sat down. His eyes were a bit dull. As the most popular contestant to win the interstellar tournament, Nangong Qingxian was actually defeated by a female disciple of the sect of all times. Gu Tianqing thought highly of He and also thought highly of Yixingchen. He thought that they could smoothly enter the top 10, but he never expected that Yao Menjing, who didn't show her strength, would be so strong. Monster. A group of monsters. After the first round ended, the second round continued. He and Jian Xiaohong went up the stage. As the referee shouted for the start of the match, he immediately announced, the winner is He. Finished. Finished. Damn it. Jian Xiaohong rubbed her left shoulder that was hit and stomped her feet. I haven't even used my sword move, why did he attack? He Wudi was speechless. Senior brother Zhou has a problem with his brain. He had to wait for you to use your move. I'm not that stupid. Whoosh! After the referee announced the result, Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and looked up at the sky. He found that the sky was wider and bluer, so he put his hand on his face and laughed strangely. Yao Menjing and He Wudi advancing meant that they had 2 tickets to win. It meant that they met the minimum requirement to complete the epic mission. If he didn't write a chapter, he would be letting down the 2 powerful auras and atmosphere. The referee raised his hand and blew the whistle. Begin. Who? As soon as he finished speaking, the sharp and sturdy aura collided first, and the resulting aftershock instantly swept him away. He howled in the air, I shouldn't have come up, hiss. The red hair let out a long neigh. Yi Xingchen held the halberd and rushed over. Hoo! The wind howled and was as sharp as a knife. The fully armed Xiao Ziji grabbed the Gatling gun with both hands. After a simple lock, the gun's muzzle flashed with blue light, and bullets flew out like a torrential rain. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. Xiao, the red hair moved like a snake and rushed over from the rain of bullets. The heavenly halberd gathered a powerful force and fiercely stabbed over. Xiao Ziji hurriedly retracted his spear and placed the flowing light shield in front of him. Boom! The moment the halberd and shield collided, visible energy ripples quickly spread from the stage. The space was stirred up and distorted. At this moment, someone would ask, did the empty bullets affect the spectator stand? Don't worry. There was an array formation protecting the area. Although there were dents caused by the stray bullets, it should be able to hold on for a while. Da-da-da. After taking the heavenly halberd's attack head-on, Xiao Ziji raised his shield and retreated until he was a few meters away. He grinned and said, strong. Xiao. Right at this moment, Yi Xingchen leaped up from the red hair horse, and like a demonic god, he charged towards them. Xiao Ziji hurriedly raised his shield to block. Boom! Ka. The heavenly halberd hit the flowing light shield. The powerful force pressed down on the ground like a wave, causing the surrounding stone slabs to crack quickly. The entire stage couldn't bear the force and collapsed. Damn! The audience was shocked. So exciting. At the beginning, they guessed that since they were both disciples of the Sect of all times, they might go easy on each other. But they didn't expect the 2 to fight for real. Gu Tianqing shook his head and said, there's no need for that. Since they were all from the same sect, it was destined that someone would successfully advance to the top 10. There was still a competition later, and they still had to fight for the championship. If they didn't conserve their strength to fight the other contestants, it would be stupid. Jun Changshao didn't say anything. In fact, he was watching with great interest. Nangong Qingxian and Jian Xiaohong had already lost. There was only a group of geniuses left that didn't deserve to be named. The championship would definitely not run away. So, the disciples could play however they wanted. As long as they were happy. Boom! Boom! On the shattered fighting stage, 2 kinds of auras, sharp and strong, crazily exploded. The disciples of the Sect of all times turned their heads in unison. Their bodies had turned black, leaving only a pair of red eyes, staring at the 2 pitiful people like demons. Woo, I want to go back to the Valoran continent. Woo, I want to go back to the king's mainland. Chapter 1817. 8 out of the top 10 in the Galaxy main tournament were members of the Sect of all times. This meant that they had obtained 8 tickets to enter the Sacred War. As a result, Jun Changshao was so excited that he was about to faint from fainting. The requirement for the epic mission was 2 tickets. Now that it was 4 times higher than the minimum, there would definitely be more rewards. Let's end this quickly. Jun Changshao was no longer hoping to win the championship. He only hoped that the Galaxy main tournament would end quickly so that he could complete the epic mission and break through to the Prophet realm. He had not experienced the thrill of leveling up for a long time. He missed it very much. Nephew. Gu Tianqing smiled. You've brought me too many surprises. 8 out of the top 10 contestants representing the Crossing Heaven domain were in the top 10. His son was one of them. He would definitely be overjoyed. Uncle Gu was already thinking that once the news spread to the Crossing Heaven domain, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Of course. Even if it was already a huge commotion. The audience from different dimensions were all discussing. They were all deeply shocked. It was not that there were no disciples from the same sect who had advanced in the Universe Holy War Galaxy main tournament. However, 7 people had entered at once. This was a new record. It's about time. Gu Xiaoxi stood up. Although he was not tall, he attracted everyone's attention because he had just defeated his opponent. Schwa! Under everyone's gaze, Gu Xiaoxi took off his jacket and revealed his Sect of all times high-ranking uniform. Then, he elegantly put on the cape with the word Ancient engraved on it. The 2 words shone brightly under the sunlight. Once again, it shocked all the martial artists present. Alliance leader Gu's son, an expert, said in disbelief, he's also from the Sect of all times. Exactly. Out of the 10 tickets, the Sect of all times took 8. If that Lu Qianqian didn't admit defeat on purpose, if that Su Xiaoma held on for a while longer, no one dared to think about it anymore. Because once they thought about it, they would think of the Sect of all times. That would definitely be more shocking than now. It would be even more record-breaking. While the audience was still in shock, the camera zoomed in on He Wudi, Li Qingyang, and the others. They were either standing proudly, leaning against the corners of the walls, or sitting on the platform. All of them had indifferent smiles on the corners of their mouths, and the unyielding auras they emanated grew stronger. Sect Master Wang. Jun Changshao looked up at the sky and thought to himself, will this sect do as you wish? If sect leader Wang's spirit was in heaven, he would never have thought that the Iron Bone Sword sect, a secluded sect that was once despised, would stand proudly in the highest standard competition in the upper universe and become an existence that the world would respect with awe and veneration. The competition wasn't over yet. Why did it feel like they had won the championship? Actually, the championship was already in their hands. The remaining number 7 Luban and Timo were like 2 sheep that had fallen into a tiger's den. What awaited them was, boom! Boom! The next round of battle began. Although Yi Xingqian had fought a fierce battle with Xiao Zuiji and used up a lot of energy, he was still full of energy. He grabbed Timo and gave him a good beating, until Timo shouted that he wanted to surrender. Number 7 Luban was in the same boat. As 2 existences that must die in the Valoran continent and the King's mainland, it was a miracle that they could make it into the top 10. Therefore, when they were surrounded by the disciples of the Sect of all times, their good days came to an end. Of course. The 2 pitiful bystanders had lost the competition, but it didn't mean that the competition was over, because there was still the finals. As expected. He Wudi versus Yi Xingqian. Thud. Night Emperor was the first to land on the platform. He pointed proudly at He Wudi and said, "Come, let's fight." He Wudi walked up listlessly. Since he had made it into the top 10, it didn't matter whether he won or lost. Therefore, he decided to put on a show and give the championship to Brother Yi. I hope so. Yi Xingqian said, you can use the method you used to deal with Ling Li. He Wudi looked at him and saw the seriousness in his eyes. He saw the desire to pursue the ultimate battle, so he stroked his messy hair and said solemnly, as you wish. Let the battle begin. The referee, who was covered in bandages, shouted from afar. As soon as he finished speaking, he ran outside. When he looked back, he saw the 2 contestants exploding their cultivation and colliding with each other, creating a terrifying shockwave. He cried out in despair, I won't be a referee anymore. Boom! The crowd completely ignored the referee, who crashed into the outer wall. They looked at the platform intently, guessing that the finals would be exciting. But in reality, when Yiwudi was serious, it was really terrifying. So much so that when Yi Xingchen was about to make a move, he saw his opponent suddenly approaching and punching him in an instant. Movement, power. It was exactly as he had wished. Boom! The platform exploded again, and the ground caved in instantly. The same explosion, the same effect, happened again in the finals. Everyone looked over with wide eyes. They saw a figure slowly walking out of the dust-filled area. Who was it? Yi Xingchen. He stopped outside the platform and kept his head down. White foam flowed out of his mouth. In the end, he couldn't stabilize his body and fell to the ground. Before he fainted, he howled in his heart, "He's too serious." Reader, is it because he can't afford to play? Whoosh! The wind blew, blowing away the dust. Yiwudi stood on the broken platform and looked at Yi Xingchen, who had fainted outside. He scratched his head and said, "I hit him a little too hard." Sangyan Systems champion, Sect of all time's disciple, Yiwudi. The substitute referee announced loudly. Ding! Epic level mission completed. Ding! Epic level mission beginning. Now that the champion had been decided, a system notification popped up. Lord Changshao once again covered his face and let out a strange cackle that only villains would have. "Nephew." Gu Tianqing asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Jun Changshao was overjoyed. "I just want to sing loudly." Gu Tianqing smiled. "Your disciple won the championship and has so many tickets to the finals. It's indeed a happy thing. Sing if you want to. No one will laugh at you." Cough. Jun Changshao moistened his throat and stood on the platform. He put his hands on his hips and sang loudly. Mr. Gu was right. His disciple was so happy that no one would laugh at him for winning the championship. Because, as soon as Goshen opened his mouth, the audience collapsed in their chairs, bleeding from their orifices. They foamed at the mouth and fainted. Ah, pft. Gu Tianqing leaned on his chair. When he heard the high notes again, he spat out a mouthful of blood and slowly slid to the ground. His legs and hands were still trembling. Ding! Epic level mission completed. Ding! Your disciple has successfully obtained 82 tickets to the Holy War and met the requirements. Epic level mission completed. Completion rate, 400%. Host receives 20,000 reputation points. Ding! Sect reputation points, 26,000. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the first epic level mission in the upper universe. You have obtained the right to purchase the Supreme Destiny Secret Realm X1. Jun Changshao listened quietly. When he did not hear anything, he was stunned. That's it? An epic level mission with 400% completion was only rewarded with one secret realm? And he had to spend money to buy it? Was there any justice in this world? Was there any law? Phew! When Goshen collapsed, a terrifying force that seemed to come from the depths of the universe rushed into his Baihui and Huitong acupoints. It instantly occupied his entire body, including his dantian, mind, and consciousness. Chapter 1818. Jun Changshao, who was conflicted over the reward of only one arcane realm, was suddenly enveloped by a powerful aura. This power could be said to be an attribute, psionic energy, or the profound meaning of martial arts. In short, Tai Xian was amazing. It was incredible. At that moment, Jun Changshao was in a gorgeous environment. His soul and thoughts were slowly sublimating. Obviously, after completing the epic mission, he was finally going to enter the divine legacy state. The powerhouses of the upper universe might not even be able to comprehend it in their lifetime. However, Jun Changshao broke through by completing missions. It was really enviable. The powerful aura poured into his body, driving his meridians and true spirit power to sublimating. The process was too comfortable. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and hummed unconsciously. Seeing this, Gu Tianqing almost punched him in the face. No! This kid seemed to be, whoosh. At this moment, a majestic airwave suddenly exploded around Jun Changshao. If Mr. Gu had not noticed it in time and stabilized his body in advance, he would have been blown away. It's him. He's going to advance. Because he was the closest, Gu Tianqing felt the aura released. His eyes widened in shock. It was understandable for a martial artist to advance. However, to suddenly break through during the galactic competition seemed a little too casual. Gu Tianqing recalled the situation when he advanced back then. When he realized that he was about to enter the divine legacy state, he prepared for several years in advance. For this reason, he chose many places with good feng shui and invited many friends and family to cheer him on. Breaking through to the divine legacy state was a very sacred thing. Any powerhouse would treat it seriously. Unlike Jun Changshao. He broke through in the middle of a competition. He did not give the highest realm of the upper universe any respect at all. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. Majestic airwaves surged out without restraint and soon filled the entire venue. Soon, they filled the entire dimension and spread toward the endless universe. Roar roar. The demon beasts in the dimension where the competition was held roared in unison. There was absolute respect in their eyes, as if they were cheering for the powerhouse who was about to be born. What's going on? Someone is going to advance? Isn't this a bit too much? Could it be, the martial artists in the venue were the closest to the point of explosion? They forcefully stabilized their bodies and ignored their hair being blown around. They tried their best to lock onto Jun Changshao and exclaimed in unison, "Heavenly Secret Realm. Patriarch is about to break through?" He Wudi asked. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others smiled brightly. Junior brother, he had become the champion of the main competition and Patriarch was about to enter the heavenly secret stage. Good things came in pairs. Swish! At this moment Jun Changshao disappeared into thin air. Where is he? Gu Tianqing hurriedly released his spiritual senses, but he couldn't find Go Sheng. He even discovered that the disciples of the Sect of all times and his son were missing. Because of Jun Changshao's disappearance, the warrior who was about to seize the chance to comprehend his power Upanishad collapsed. Why is he gone? Eternal world. A majestic aura emerged and instantly enveloped the entire plane. What's going on? The martial artists from various clans looked up at the visible heaven and earth attributes in the sky. They were all shocked. Soon, they discovered that Jun Changshao had his eyes closed and his hands behind his back. He was like a god standing on top of a mountain. The aura released when one entered the heavenly secret realm contained all kinds of martial arts Upanishads, which could be comprehended and comprehended by martial artists. Gosheng entered the eternal world as soon as possible. The creatures living here realized it. They all sat cross-legged on the ground and madly absorbed the heaven and earth attributes around them. Whoosh! 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 After a while, many card warriors successfully entered a new realm after comprehending the heavenly secret aura. Because there were too many creatures and too many realm breakthroughs, the heaven and earth attributes in the air of the entire eternal world became stronger and stronger. The aura released by the advancement gradually merged with the trees, rocks, and soil, and subtly improved the ecological environment of the plane. Martial artists relied on the heaven and earth attributes to advance. The aura released after their breakthrough could also nourish the plane. This was the balance of heaven and earth. Therefore, martial artists couldn't leave the plane, and the plane couldn't leave martial artists. Whether they could become stronger or not depended on their cooperation. Got it. Yi Xingchen lay on the ground, his eyes shining with excitement. From the heavenly secret aura released by the Patriarch, he saw the opportunity to enter the half-step realm. Although it was insignificant, it opened a door to a higher realm. Su Xiaoma, Xiao Ziji, and others more or less gained something. However, there was a door. Whether they could cross it or not depended on their own luck. Jun Changshao, who stood proudly on top of the mountain, was still releasing the majestic heavenly secret aura, which benefited all creatures in the eternal world. Although it couldn't help them break through, the overall strength of the plane was definitely higher than before. Even more, many babies born at this juncture were extraordinarily talented. If one had to describe the situation at this moment, it was really a case of, when a man achieves the Tao, all his chickens and dogs ascend to heaven. Old man. In the extreme cave residence, Masato Kitano said with emotion, "Your disciple is going to ascend to heaven. It's my honor to have him as my disciple." Jinren Tongu said. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The heavenly secret aura kept emerging, and creatures in the eternal world benefited a lot. However, after a few hours, the heavenly secret aura gradually weakened and dissipated between heaven and earth. It's not satisfying. People were still unsatisfied. They looked up at the top of the mountain. Jun Changshao stood proudly, with his hands behind his back and his eyes closed. He changed. He changed. He was obviously far away from everyone, but he seemed to be right in front of them. Even his hair fluttering in the wind seemed to contain some martial arts mystery. A clan priest knelt on the ground and shouted, "This is God." Plop! Plop! The clansmen knelt down and turned into devout believers. Swish! After a long time, Jun Changshao opened his eyes. The light in his eyes seemed to contain the heavenly secret aura. Congratulations, Patriarch! Peek into the heavenly secret. The disciples of the sect of all times shouted loudly, "Cultured and virtuous, he will benefit the common people and live as long as the heavens." Their voices shook heaven and earth and broke through the universe. Swish! Jun Changshao waved his hand and called Rose of Flowers, who was in the sect, over. Then, he hugged her around his waist. When Li Qingyang broke through to the half-step heavenly secret realm, he did something similar. Could it be that Go Sheng, who peeked into the heavenly secret realm, had his EQ skyrocketed? Was he going to do something that even readers would not dare to imagine in front of the world? Me. Jun Changshao leaned his face over. Rose of Flowers, who was held by his wrist, blushed instantly. She lowered her head shyly and said, "So many people are watching. Is it appropriate? Am I handsome?" Jun Changshao said this sentence very seriously, without any playfulness. Rose of Flowers was silent. She thought that her husband was going to kiss his fiancée in public like his second disciple. She never thought that he would ask her if she was handsome. Shameless. I like it. Handsome. Rose of Flowers smiled. But, she added, if you shave your hair, you should be even more handsome. Is that so? With a thought, Jun Changshao's lush hair disappeared, and his head became shiny. Handsome, handsome, handsome. Rose of Flowers said happily. Swish. At this time, Jun Changshao's thoughts moved again, and his bald head was covered by his black hair again. It could be said that his hair reached his waist. It was just right to marry you. Rose of Flowers said in surprise, after breaking through to the heavenly secret realm, you can control the growth of your hair? That's right. Amazing. Jun Changshao's face was full of pride. After entering the heavenly secret realm, shouldn't they pay attention to how strong you are? Why are they paying attention to your hair? Even if it can grow, what's there to be proud of? The system could not help but roar. Chapter 1819. After breaking through to the divine secret realm, Jun Changshao had mastered a higher level of the law of heaven and earth. His hair could stretch and contract freely. When he ascended to the upper world to study the creation of heaven and earth formation, he suffered from the sequela of hair loss. Until now, he had been relying on hair growth agents or wigs. Now, this difficult problem was solved after he entered the divine secret realm. He didn't have to worry about hair loss anymore. He didn't have to wear a wig anymore. With a thought, long hair to the waist, will you marry me? With a thought, a buzz cut and a back, he had everything. At that moment, Jun Changshao couldn't help but want to sing at the top of his lungs. The mountains seemed even taller, and the water seemed even clearer. The host's focus is different from others. The system complained, I'm convinced. Whoosh! At that moment, Jun Changshao disappeared from the eternal world. After he left, many people were still immersed in the enlightenment. Although some warriors didn't break through, they would definitely benefit from the enlightenment. It was only a matter of time before they broke through to the next realm. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the galactic main competition hall, when Jun Changshao returned with his disciples, there was no one in the spectator seats. Where is he? Go Leftover said blankly. He Woody reminded him, Patriarch, we've been in the eternal world for most of the day. It took a few hours to break through to the divine secret realm. The finals outside had already been decided. Since they couldn't find him, they naturally dispersed. Jun Changshao was speechless. I wanted to come out and show off. Brat! At that moment, Gu Tianqing flew over and said, Where did you go? Uncle! Jun Changshao was immediately energized and said, Is my hairstyle handsome? As he spoke, his hair changed from short to long, from perm to dyed, from 30 to 70 parting to neat bangs. He could change the shape at will. Handsome my ass. Gu Tianqing's white hair suddenly exploded. He said proudly, This is handsome. Damn! Jun Changshao said in surprise, Handsome indeed. Only a good hairstyle can show a man's charm. You're still too young. You have to learn more in the future. Uncle is right. Come, let me show you another one. The two of them seemed to have found a common topic. They discussed from hairstyle to maintenance, and from maintenance to nursing care. The system could not help but roar, Is it true that every divine arcanum cultivator does not care about their strength, but only their hairstyle? The finals were over. As Jun Changshao and his disciples had suddenly left the arena, Gu Tianqing received the champion's reward on behalf of Jun Changshao. The rewards were quite generous as well, with 1 million high-quality spirit stones. For Jun Changshao, who owned the eternal world, these were just icing on the cake. On the contrary, the trophy engraved with the words Universe Sacred War Blue Cloud Main Competition Champion, Woody, carried a lot of weight. It was even carefully placed in the Sect's Hall of Honor. Hall of Honor. It was a hall that had existed for a long time but had never made an appearance. Unlike other halls, the Hall of Honor did not have a hall master or members. It was filled with all kinds of glory. There was a trophy with the title, Champion of the Qingyang County Intersect Tournament, Xiao Zuiji, a certificate with the title, Champion of the Pingyang County Intersect Tournament, Li Qingyang, and a golden plaque with the words Dragon and Tiger contend for hegemony. These countless honors were all proof of the Sect of all time's growth. Thinking about it carefully, regarding the story of the disciples' competition, everyone might remember the opening of the intersect competition, where Xiao Ziji hugged his wine jar and cried after winning. They might also remember the dragon and tiger battle for hegemony, where Jun Changshao used his face to block a palm from the upper realm. There were no more competitions in the future. There were, but it was only briefly mentioned. In the 4 million word Sect genre novel, there were no chapters about disciples competing every few days. Was it not worthy of praise? Woody won the championship, but it did not mean that the interstellar competition was over, because 20 more disciples from the losers bracket would be chosen. The losers brackets competition would be held a few days apart, so Jun Changshao stayed in the city temporarily and spent 20,000 reputation points to buy the Tianji secret realm as a reward for the epic mission. This secret realm contains supreme profoundness. Those who enter can peek into the secrets of heaven. This was the only sentence written in the manual. Jun Changshao fell into deep thought. To be precise, he was shocked by these 2 lines of words. Supreme profoundness. Peek into the secrets of heaven. Could it allow martial artists to enter the Tianji realm? If that's the case, the system said solemnly, then it's a priceless treasure. Not bad. Jun Changshao approved. The Tianji realm was currently the highest realm in the upper universe, and it was extremely difficult to break through. If the Tianji secret realm could do it, it would definitely be considered as stealing the fortune of heaven and earth. Sect of all times. Jun Changshao placed the Tianji secret realm at the back of the mountain, waited for the whirlpool to form, and walked in. Unlike other secret realms, the Tianji secret realm was not colorful, nor was it illusory. It was more like a very ordinary independent world. However, in such an ordinary environment, it contained the laws of heaven and earth and the profoundness of martial arts. Unbelievable! Jun Changshao said in shock. Because he had entered the Tianji realm, he could clearly sense the attributes of this world, and he could feel that it was the opportunity to break through the Tianji realm. Upper echelons and disciples, come in and cultivate. Breaking through the Tianji realm is just around the corner. Jun Changshao immediately walked out and summoned all the elders and core disciples. There's a new secret realm? Su Xiaoma's eyes lit up. Jun Changshao said, this is the Tianji secret realm. After you enter, you can peek into the secrets of heaven and enter the Tianji realm. As soon as he said this, the whole place fell silent. Among them, He Woody's expression was the most exaggerated. As someone who came from a higher world, he knew better than anyone that as the highest realm in the upper universe, one could only break through by relying on one's own comprehension and obtaining great opportunities. He had never heard of external help. Darlings. Jun Changshao opened his arms and said, go in and experience it. Whoosh! As soon as he said this, Yi Xingqian rushed in first, followed by the upper echelons and other disciples. Jun Changshao said, our sect of all times will become the most transcendent existence in the upper universe because of this Tianji secret realm. Indeed. There was a supreme profoundness in the secret realm. Once a martial artist comprehended and absorbed it, breaking through the Tianji realm would be as easy as flipping one's hand. Dreams were beautiful, but reality was cruel. When the upper echelons and disciples of the sect of all times entered the Tianji secret realm, although they sensed that there was an extraordinary profoundness in this ordinary world, they could not comprehend it. Patriarch. Su Xiaoma said, I don't feel it. Impossible. Jun Changshao stood at the side and said, how can you not feel such a strong profoundness? Please. The system said speechlessly, you are now in the Tianji realm and can feel the profoundness of heaven and earth. The disciples are still in the truth-seeking realm. It would be strange if they could feel it. Jun Changshao was silent. There was indeed profoundness in the secret realm that led to the Tianji secret realm. Jun Changshao had reached this level, so he could naturally feel it. However, the upper echelons and disciples were all in the truth-seeking realm, so it was difficult for them to touch it as easily as him. To put it bluntly, the Tianji secret realm was an opportunity vault. Although it provided a chance for martial artists to enter the Tianji secret realm, whether they could grasp it or not depended on themselves. As for what Jun Changshao thought, disciples could enter the Tianji secret realm as soon as they entered. Hee. The system mocked, dream on. Whoosh whoosh. All of a sudden, a powerful wave of air surged out. Jun Changshao hurriedly turned his head and saw Lu Qianqian standing in the distance, surrounded by a majestic aura of advancement. He said happily, my eldest disciple is about to break through to the half-step. Chapter 1820. As soon as the system finished mocking him, the eldest disciple on the other side showed signs of advancing. The speed of the slap in the face could be said to be incomparable. In fact, Lu Qianqian had touched the half-step divine secret realm a long time ago, but she was still lacking. The powerful ultimacy in the divine secret realm gave her the opportunity to advance. Whoosh whoosh. The momentum of advancement spread out from the whirlpool and covered the sect of all times and the eternal world. The momentum was no less than Li Qingyang's breakthrough. Speaking of Li Qingyang, some people would ask, why didn't he advance to the finals when he was already at the half-step divine secret realm? Don't ask. He Woody would be going easy on him if you did. A few hours later, the spreading aura gradually converged. Lu Qianqian successfully entered the half-step divine secret realm from the peak of the truth-seeking realm. Unbelievable! He woody exclaimed. First senior sister had just entered and immediately broke through. This secret realm was terrifying. Of course, Lu Qianqian was not the only one who benefited. Ryu Sinan, Gong Sun Ho, and the other elders who were stuck at the peak of the truth-seeking realm had more or less comprehended the ultimacy of heaven and earth. Whether they could enter the half-step divine secret realm depended on themselves. In the past, no one could guarantee whether they could obtain the opportunity or touch the ultimacy of heaven, even if it was just the half-step divine secret realm. The appearance of the divine secret realm meant that the opportunity was ready for them. If they wanted to break through to the half-step divine secret realm, they would have to waste their time. Whoosh! Yi Xingqian sat down cross-legged. First senior sister's advancement had greatly stimulated him, so he decided to sleep here until he entered the half-step divine secret realm. Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others thought so too. However, many disciples still had to participate in the losers group competition in a few days, so they could only experience it for a while. At the same time, they had to explain. The appearance of the divine secret realm meant that the members of the sect of all times could break through scientifically. It was just a matter of time. Please don't think about why it wasn't he Woody or Yi Xingqian who broke through first, but Lu Qianqian. Fans of each other shouldn't fight over this either. Thank you. During the Qingming festival, it was raining heavily, and the pedestrians on the streets were in despair. This was the weather of the loser group competition. The sky was filled with dark clouds, and the atmosphere was stifling. Jun Changshao led the disciples of the sect of all times into the venue. He maintained a solemn expression the entire time, and even the smirk on his face was gone. The top geniuses who hadn't advanced into the top 10 had also entered the venue one after another. All of them were rubbing their fists and rubbing their palms together. They were eager to obtain a spot in the top 20 today and participate in the finals that would be held soon. Among them, the ones with the highest voices were naturally Nangong Qing Xian, Jian Xiaohong, and the others. By right, they were supposed to be the favorites to win the championship. However, he was unfortunate enough to encounter a disciple from the sect of all times when he advanced to the top 10, so he could only end up in the losers bracket. It could be said that the universe sacred wars had been held for so many times, and it was unprecedented for a group of popular champions to gather in the losers bracket. Hence, the battle this time still attracted a lot of spectators. What everyone was more concerned about was whether the adopted son of the heavenly devil emperor would still come to participate. I don't think so. After being abused so badly, he should at least need to recuperate for a few months, right? It's obvious that that guy is being targeted by the sect of all times. This time, there are many disciples from the sect of all times in the losers bracket. If he dares to participate, he will inevitably be abused once he encounters them. Just as everyone was discussing, a fierce figure appeared in the venue. Although his entire body was wrapped in bandages, it could be seen from his vigorous movements that he should have recovered. Ha! Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, he recovered quite quickly. Junior brothers. Su Xiaoma grinned and said, when you meet him, don't show mercy. Xiao Ziji and the others shook their heads. At that moment, they seemed to have turned into lions again, looking at the wild wolf that was walking over step by step with ridicule in their eyes. Participants, please draw lots. The person in charge shouted loudly, indicating the start of the losers bracket. After experiencing the competition, the strength of all the participants was clear, so there was no need to describe the process. Let's get to the point. In the battle for the top 10, Lu Qianqian's opponent was Ling Li. It's over. Su Xiaoma said, I don't have a chance anymore. The audience shook their heads and said, that guy is unlucky again. A few days ago, the scene of Lu Qianqian brutally beating up Ling Li in the competition was still vivid in their minds. If they met again, it would definitely be over. Ta! Ling Li walked onto the stage. His eyes were unusually cold, and killing intent filled his entire body. First, Lu Qianqian deliberately went easy on him, and then he was instantly defeated by He Wudi with one punch. As the adopted son of the celestial devil emperor, his confidence and dignity had been destroyed. This time, he met an old opponent again, so he had to wash away his shame. Foster father. Ling Li lowered his head and said to himself, "It's my fault for not being able to bring back the championship for you. This time, even if I have to bet my life, I will win the loser's bracket." Swoosh! He took out a red pill and put it in his mouth. Whoosh whoosh! In an instant, Ling Li's body was filled with a blood-red luster, as if it had turned into tentacles that shrouded him. Gu Tianxing said with a solemn look, "This kid is burning his blood essence. He's playing with his life. Fuck." Jun Changshao got up and shouted at the referee, "Taking a pill during the competition is cheating. Are the organizers not going to do anything about it?" Seeing his angry tone, the referee directly gave him "There's a conspiracy. I want to complain." Jun Changshao rushed in front of the referee and shouted. He was immediately held up by several brothers and then expelled. On the stage, Ling Li, who was burning his blood essence, bent over, his hands hanging naturally. His 10 fingers were filled with blood-red flowing light, as if a demon god had descended. "The shame from a few days ago," he said with a ferocious expression, "Today, I will take it all back." Whoosh whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! After saying that, he assumed the exclusive running posture of Naruto and rushed over like a madman with blood-red flowing light. Caw caw! Caw caw caw! At this moment, the ground beneath his feet was covered in ice, causing Ling Li's speed to decrease. His whole body was covered in frost, and he slowly turned from a demon god into a lifelike ice sculpture. Wang! Wang! The sky gradually distorted, and layers of ice pressed down. "Cooling you down," Lu Qianqian said calmly. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Ice cubes carrying the power of extreme frost fell from the sky and smashed onto the immobile Ling Li. Every time he touched it, his burning blood would cool down. Every time he felt pain, it would remind him of his childhood memories of fighting his peers for survival and food. "I know. Willing. Heart." But what could he do? Facing Lu Qianqian, who had just broken through to the half-step Tianji realm, even if you took a pill, even if you risked your life, you would still lose. You would still be tortured. Even when you trampled on Li Tiansheng on the stage, you were destined to have a tragic ending. Winner, Lu Qianqian. After nearly 24 hours of freezing and bombarding, Lu Qianqian threw Ling Li out of the stage and announced the end of the competition. Eldest senior sister is mighty. Jing Ji and Mao Xiaodao shouted loudly. These two people had been eliminated in the first 2 rounds. Coincidentally, the ones who eliminated them were Nangong Qingxian and Jian Shaohong. On the other hand, Li Tiantian had successfully made it into the top 20. Therefore, the shame of the eternal sect was carried by the 2 brothers, and it was absolutely deserved. Chapter 1821. Ling Li was carried down by the officials. Before he left, he was still vomiting blood on the stretcher. It could be seen that he was abused miserably. Although he lost, he at least entered the top 20 and obtained the qualification to enter the finals. In other words, in the finals, he might meet the disciples of the sect of all times again and be ruthlessly abused by them. I still have a chance. Watching Ling Li being carried away, Li Tiansheng clenched his fists. He was a little unwilling that he couldn't complete his revenge in the losers group, but he also knew that with his current strength, it would be difficult to match them. It didn't matter. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too late. When I go to the finals and meet that guy, Li Tiansheng, will definitely press him to the ground. Jun Changshao also believed that in the finals a few years later, if his disciple met Ling Li again, he would definitely crush him. After all, with the Tianji secret realm, he might even break through half a step. The competition was still going on. Su Xiaoma undoubtedly entered the top 10. It could be said that the disciples of the sect of all times almost monopolized the top 20 spots, causing a sensation once again. Too powerful. How did they cultivate this? In this year's interstellar competition, the crossing heaven boundaries limelight is unparalleled. Hearing everyone's discussion, especially when the crossing heaven boundary was mentioned, Gu Tianqing immediately puffed up his chest and a proud expression appeared on his face. "Uncle!" Jun Changshao said in surprise, "Why are you floating?" Next round. Lu Qianqian and Nangong Qingxian met. The two ice element contestants had not yet stepped onto the stage, but the audience had already put on their big cotton-padded jackets in advance. Sure enough, this was an ice-cold battle. After the two went on stage, the ground instantly formed a thick layer of ice and spread to the spectator stand. The entire area seemed to have sunk into a world of ice and snow. So cold, everyone clasped their hands together and began to tremble unconsciously. The battle between the two ice elementalists took a total of 2,000 words. In the end, Lu Qianqian used a martial art that was like the descent of an ice god to send Nangong Qingxian flying. Whoosh! The cold air dissipated and everything returned to normal. The martial artists who came out of the cold winter environment suddenly felt the warmth of spring and flowers blooming. Whoosh! Whoosh! Sword chi swept across, tearing the space apart. Su Xiaoma seemed to have turned into a monkey, using his mysterious movement technique to dodge around the stage. Damn it! Jian Xiaohong gritted her teeth and said, "Other than running, what else can you do?" Swish! Su Xiaoma seized the opportunity and instantly circled to the back. He poured his true spirit force into his right leg and suddenly kicked out, "I can still kick you down." Boom! Jian Xiaohong did not dodge in time and was kicked out of the stage. The winner is Su Xiaoma. At this point, the losers group had also reached the finals. The champions were Lu Qianqian and Su Xiaoma. The latter was straightforward. The first thing she said after going on stage was, "I admit defeat." In the sect of all times, eldest senior sister was the most feared by her fellow disciples. Therefore, since they had met, they would definitely not fight. Just like that, after surrendering as if they were playing house, all the matches in the losers group ended. With Lu Qianqian as the leader, more than 10 disciples successfully entered the finals of the universe's sacred war. Including He Wuti and the others who were seeded participants, there were a total of 20 people. 45 people in the preliminaries. 20 people in the main competition. Nearly half of the disciples entered the finals. This result could be said to be dazzling. So much so that after leaving the venue, Gu Tianqing was still grinning. Even when he walked, he gave people a feeling that he was floating. Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed. "Nephew, why are you sighing?" Gu Tianqing asked. "I won't hide it from uncle." Jun Changshao said, "I thought that the disciples who came to participate in the main competition this time would all be able to advance. Now it seems that I have underestimated the geniuses of the Ashen Cloud department." Gu Tianqing's mouth twitched. Why didn't this guy say that he had overestimated his own disciples? In the upper universe, there are countless extraordinary people. "Nephew, don't be a frog in a well," Gu Tianqing said. "Uncle is right." Jun Changshao said with a serious expression, "There is still some time before the finals. Nephew, you will always supervise the disciples' training and strive to let them take all the top 20. Gu Tianqing was speechless. Just now, he was still a bit humble. Why was he suddenly so arrogant? "I hope so," Gu Tianqing casually replied. In the main competition, the performance of the sect of all times disciples was indeed amazing. However, there was always someone better. He definitely did not think that they could take all the top 20 spots in the finals. The main competition of the Ashen Cloud department ended successfully. The main competitions of the other departments were still in full swing. For example, the Azure Ocean department. Top geniuses from all over the world gathered together and were fighting for the chance to enter the finals. Boom! In the arena, a contestant with decent strength was sent flying. The winner, Jia Lingyao. The referee announced loudly. The audience was dumbfounded. This woman, who no one thought highly of, had defeated several opponents in a row. Now, she had knocked out a popular champion. Who the hell is she? I have been to the Sky Spill world several times, but I have never heard of such a person. This is unbelievable. While everyone was discussing, Jia Lingyao walked down the arena and sat alone in a corner. Miss Jia, get lost. The handsome contestant, who was trying to get close to her, immediately stopped. Then, he helplessly turned around and retreated. He thought to himself, thorny woman. Buzz. At this moment, the huge light screen above the arena flashed and a message was broadcasted. The title was, "The main competition of the Ashen Cloud department has ended. 40 contestants have obtained the chance to enter the finals." The Ashen Cloud department ended so quickly. It was held earlier than us. Everyone looked up at the light screen and silently read the list of people who had advanced. Damn! An elite said in surprise, "Is the Sky Crossing world that awesome? They actually took half of the spots. Not only that. And they are all from the same sect." The list of people who had advanced was mostly prefixed with Sky Crossing World, Sect of all times. So, the warriors of the Sea Department were all dumbfounded. It's him. Jia Lingyao locked her eyes on the name Yi Xingchen. Her bright eyes flashed with monstrous anger. The unbearable scene once again appeared in her mind. Jun Changshao did not take his disciples back to the Sky Crossing world immediately. Instead, he rested in the main city for a few days. Of course. His real intention was whether he could catch Ling Li. Although Lu Chanshan and he Woody tortured that guy very miserably, to be honest, there was no technical content. If he was sent to the Tianyuan prison pagoda and handed over to Area, he would definitely be very happy. Unfortunately, Ling Li disappeared after being carried down. Jun Changshao's spiritual sense could not find him. He could not help but guess, could it be that he was secretly sent away? Nephew. Gu Tianqing said, let's set off tomorrow and go back. Okay, uncle. Since he did not catch Ling Li, Jun Changshao also had the intention to go back. However, just as he was about to set off the next day, he saw the light screen flickering above the city. Words gradually appeared: the main competition of the Sea Department has ended. 40 contestants have obtained the chance to enter the finals. Jia Lingyao. Seeing the champion's name, Jun Changshao and his disciples subconsciously looked at Yi Xingchen. Chapter 1822. Jun Changshao came from the Sea Department, so when he saw the notice, he naturally paid more attention to it. It was fine if he didn't look, but when he did, he was shocked. Champion? Jia Lingyao. Jun Changshao and the disciples all had an impression of this name. After all, not long ago, they had an inexplicable relationship with Yi Xingchen. It can't be. Su Xiaoma said in disbelief. The woman who had a dispute with junior brother Yi actually won the championship? Could it be someone with the same name? Li Fei said. Everyone found it hard to believe that Jia Lingyao could win the championship of the Sea Department, because they remembered that when they came to the Eternal Ship, that woman didn't seem to be very strong. It should be someone with the same name. Jun Changshao also didn't think that Jia Lingyao had the strength to win the championship. Not necessarily. The system said, before she left, the host gave her a lot of resources. If it was an ordinary person, it would be difficult for them to obtain them in several lifetimes. Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, that makes sense. Furthermore, the system said again, only your disciple can quickly increase his cultivation, but he can't encounter any fortuitous encounters. Clap. Jun Changshao clapped his hands and said confidently, now that you mention it, it must be someone with the same name. The system roared, I am seriously analyzing it with you. Jun Changshao said with a solemn expression, I am also very serious. Fuck your grandpa. Try scolding me again. Fuck your grandpa. Fuck. Gosheng didn't care that he was walking on the street and directly grabbed his own neck. Men. He should be more ruthless. Nephew, what's wrong? Senior Gu, don't panic. This is my patriarch's special cultivation method. The disciples had seen Jun Changxiao's self-mutilation so many times that they could already treat it calmly. They even secretly wondered if the patriarch's breakthrough to the heavenly secret realm had something to do with his neck being strangled all year round. For this, He Wudi decided to follow suit. Only when he couldn't breathe did he hurriedly let go. He sighed in his heart, Patriarch is indeed extraordinary, I can't compare. Hey! Just as he walked out of the city gate, Jian Xiaohong chased after him. He first stood in front of Jun Changxiao, then put his hands on his waist and said, "Didn't we agree that Zhou Hong would return to the void world with me? I almost forgot." Jun Changxiao slapped his forehead, then looked at Zhou Hong and said, "Since Miss Jian is so enthusiastic, don't decline. Why don't you go with her to the ruins of End World?" Zhou Hong originally wanted to refuse, but seeing the patriarch's smiling face, he changed his mind and said, "This disciple obeys. Miss Jian." Jun Changxiao turned his head and smiled. "This disciple of mine has gone crazy from practicing the sword. I'm afraid that he will cause trouble for you. Why don't I send him over personally? The ruins of End Sword Saint. He was definitely an amazing person. It was an opportunity for his disciple to become his disciple, and it was also an opportunity for him to get to know him." The system said, "The host is going to ride on someone's coattails again." No. Jian Xiaohong decisively refused. "My grandfather doesn't like outsiders, especially those with thick skin." "All right." Jun Changxiao looked at Zhou Hong and said, "You can go with Miss Jian now." Zhou Hong stepped out and left with Jian Xiaohong. However, before leaving, he heard Jun Changxiao's voice transmission. "I'll give you 2 years. Return to the Heaven Crossing realm in 2 years." "Yes." Just like that, Zhou Hong left. He didn't have much screen time to begin with, so he was completely offline. Watching his disciples back gradually disappear into the crowd, Jun Changxiao said meaningfully, "Hong, come back in 2 years and give me a surprise." "Let's go." Gosheng snapped his fingers and led his disciple in another direction. Halfway there, he suddenly stopped, turned around, and roared, "Who did that woman say was thick-skinned?" The disciples were speechless. The patriarch's reaction arc was a little long today. Whoosh Eternal pierced through the space barrier and merged into the endless universe. There were still 2 to 3 years before the finals of the Universe Holy War. Jun Changxiao planned to stay in the Heaven Crossing realm temporarily and train his disciples to improve their realms. In this competition, his disciples performed well, and their results were still acceptable. However, they also exposed a big problem, which was that other than the core disciples, the other disciples were a little bit unreliable. For example, Jing Ji and Mao Xiaodao. The finals are the real hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Jun Changxiao said solemnly, "If I don't have a big breakthrough in the next few years, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to take the top 20. The system said, "Your disciple abused Lingli one after another, which can be considered to have offended the Celestial Devil Emperor. Not to mention secretly making things difficult for you, when the finals, he will definitely deliberately target you." "Yes." Jun Changxiao said, "That guy still has 80 foster sons. The finals in a few years will probably be a fierce battle for Qingyang and the others." He didn't underestimate the Celestial Devil Emperor just because Lingli was abused by his disciple. Moreover, the organizer didn't care about him taking medicine in the main competition, which meant that the other party had great power. "Fortunately, I have the eternal world hidden in my body," Jun Changxiao said with relief, "otherwise, I really don't dare to provoke that guy." Gosheng, who had always been fearless, actually had a submissive attitude, which was a bit unexpected. Because of the eternal world, the host has to be his enemy. The system said. That's why I hope my disciples can become stronger faster. When I have enough half-step and divine secret realm experts, I won't be afraid of the so-called celestial devil emperor. Jun Changshao could be a coward, but he would never be a coward. As long as he had the capital to challenge the other party, he would definitely fight to the end. Qingyuan Department. It was also holding the interstellar competition. Boom! On the fighting ring, there was an explosion. The energy wave like the Kamehameha suddenly hit the edge of the defensive bounded domain, causing dense cracks. Puff! Puff! Dozens of formation masters responsible for stabilizing the bounded domain spat out blood and flew out. The audience stood up in horror and looked down at the collapsed fighting ring. Looking at the contestant who had pierced his opponent's chest, their scalps were about to explode. Champion of the Universe Sacred War, Qingyuan Department, Ling Yuan. A trembling voice sounded outside the fighting ring. TSK, Ling Yuan stretched out his hand from his chest and hot blood splashed on the ground. He said disdainfully, "Why did Godfather make me participate in such a boring competition? And Ling Li, he didn't win the championship. What a piece of trash." He walked down the fighting ring and left without even collecting the trophy and rewards. Similar scenes appeared in other galaxies. The foster sons sent by the Celestial Devil Emperor all won the championship without any suspense. If one were to describe it, it would be a battle on multiple fronts. Everyone agreed that he was strong. However, it was too cruel to kill someone the moment he made a move. Azure Ocean Department. Jia Lingyao sat on a mountain peak. She held a piece of torn cloth tightly in her hand. From the color, it was obviously the sleeve of the Sect of All Times uniform. Yi Xingchen. Jia Lingyao raised her head and looked at the endless sky. Anger surged up her brows as she said, "I will personally kill you in the finals." On Eternal, Yi Xingchen was also looking at the starry sky outside the window. He couldn't help but recall what had happened before, and he suddenly felt confused. Damn it! Why can't I forget? Chapter 1823. Jun Changshao led everyone back to the crossing heaven boundary and waited for the Universe Sacred War finals a few years later. The news of the Sect of All Times disciples occupying the top 20 spots spread like wildfire across the galaxies and became the talk of the world. In the past competitions, it was common for people from the same sect to advance, but it was unprecedented for so many people to enter the finals together. We need to pay attention to this sect. We can't let our guard down. If we meet them in the finals, we need to treat them seriously. All the forces received the news of the Blue Cloud Sect's competition and were on high alert against the Sect of All Times. It wasn't just because there were too many disciples advancing, the main reason was that the Sky Devil Emperor's adopted son also participated in the Blue Cloud Sect's competition and was defeated by the other sect's disciples. It was normal to win and lose. But it wasn't normal for the Sky Devil Emperor's adopted son to lose. According to the news everyone received, the Sky Devil Emperor's adopted sons were all assigned to their respective sects, and all of them won. Only Ling Li from the Blue Cloud Sect didn't win. No one thought it was luck that allowed him to stand out in the Galaxy Sect's competition, and he even crushed the Sky Devil Emperor's adopted son. It was enough to prove that the Sect of All Times disciples were strong. This sect was dangerous. They had to treat it seriously and give it their all. In the past, Jun Changshao would be mocked whenever he brought his disciples to any competition. But now, before the finals even started, they had become the most feared existence. Of course. All the sects believed that the Sect of All Times wouldn't have an easy time in the future. Since the Sky Devil Emperor had so many adopted sons, they would definitely be targeted if they were to participate in the finals. Boom! In the majestic palace, Ling Li crashed into the wall and fell down like mud. "You still have the face to come back?" A cold voice sounded. Foster father." Ling Li raised his head with difficulty, his face extremely pale. "Please, give me another chance. If you can come out of the Demon Abyss Valley alive, I'll give you another chance." A cold voice sounded. Hearing the words Demon Abyss Valley, Ling Li's eyes were filled with fear, but he quickly said with determination, Thank you foster father. You can leave. Ling Li struggled to get up and walked out of the palace. Isn't this the foster son that Lord Foster Father values the most? Why are you in such a sorry state? Just as he walked out, a young man leaning against a pillar sneered. Ling Li did not say a word and staggered forward. Now, he no longer had the arrogance he had when he participated in the competition. To be exact, after being trampled on twice by Lu Qianqian and killed by Yi Wuti with a single punch, his dignity had been completely destroyed. He was like a sick wolf licking its wounds under the setting sun. I told you. Another young man walked over and said sarcastically, it's hard for this guy to amount to anything, but foster father trusts him the most. Facts have proven that any one of us is stronger than him, the warrior sitting on the fence said. There was no doubt that they were the foster sons of the Sky Devil Emperor. They had appeared outside the main hall to make fun of Ling Li. There was no other way. They had all survived in harsh environments. Why should they be treated differently? Why shouldn't they receive fatherly love? In the face of his foster brother's sarcasm, Ling Li did not say a word. He dragged his battered body and gradually disappeared from sight. He was the foster son that the Sky Devil Emperor valued the most. He used to have limitless glory, but after his failure, everything disappeared. In the bamboo grove courtyard, a delicate woman was sorting out the herbs. Creak. At this moment, Ling Li pushed the door open and entered. He could no longer support himself and collapsed on the ground. After being trampled on twice by Lu Qianqian and being hit by his foster father, his injuries were very serious. It was not easy for him to walk from the outer courtyard to the inner courtyard. Ling Li. The delicate woman put down the basket and walked over in a panic. What happened to you? I'm fine, Ling Li squeezed out a smile and then fainted. No one is allowed to take my food. In a damp and dark environment, a child was holding a wooden stick to protect a few pieces of moldy food behind him. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Outside the cave, there were more than a dozen children who were also disheveled and covered in filth. Go! One of them shouted. Everyone rushed over without a care for their own safety. These children who had a happy childhood had to fight to survive. Thud! Thud! An hour later, the child holding the wooden stick walked out. Although he was covered in wounds, he held the food in his arms tightly. Not bad. At this moment, a broad shadow appeared in front of him and said with relief, You are qualified to be my foster son. Jean, Take him to heal. Yes, master. A girl about 13 or 14 years old picked up the child and brought him to the bamboo grove for treatment. I'm Mu Jin. What about you? Oh, right. Master hasn't given you a name yet. During the treatment, the child remained silent, even if Mu Jin took the initiative to chat with him again and again. Congratulations, foster father has given you a name. From today onwards, you are called Ling Li, Li as in powerful. Ling Li remained silent. After his injuries were healed, he left the bamboo grove and began to undergo the most rigorous martial arts training. Later on, he was injured again and again and was sent here again and again. Why are you injured again? Ah, this time it's more serious. I need to recuperate for a few months. Hey, you haven't recovered yet. How can you get out of bed? Memories of the past kept swaying in front of his eyes until he felt a tingling sensation in his body. Ling Li returned to reality and looked at the woman who was bandaging his wounds. I heard it from others. Mu Jin applied medicine for him and said softly, You participated in the Tsangyan major competition but didn't win the championship. Yes. Ling Li said. You lost this time. Win it back next time. Mu Jin smiled and comforted him, You don't have to care so much. In foster father's eyes, I can only win and not lose. Ling Li said, In those people's eyes, it's a shame that I lost. You are Master's most valued foster son. They are all looking forward to something bad happening to you. After applying the medicine, Mu Jin arranged the medical tools and smiled, your body is healthy. You will recover after a period of rest. How long? Half a month. There is still time to go to the demonic abyss valley. Mu Jin's hand that was playing with the medicine bottle suddenly froze. She looked up at him and said in surprise, you are going to the demonic abyss valley? Yes. Ling Li nodded. Are you crazy? Mu Jin scolded. This is foster father's order. Ling Li said, I didn't win the championship. Only by surviving in the demonic abyss valley can I have a chance to redeem myself. No. Mu Jin stood up and said, I will go and beg Master. Ling Li grabbed her hand and said, don't you know foster father's temper? Mu Jin stood there and cried, you will die if you go in. Hearing her cry, Ling Li's heart ached. Trust me. You will come back alive. That night, Ling Li left the bamboo grove silently. After receiving some simple treatment, his injuries improved. He wanted to go to the demonic abyss valley as soon as possible and get foster father's forgiveness. Mu Jin didn't stop him because she was not in the bamboo grove. She was kneeling outside Master's study and begging him not to let Ling Li go to the demonic abyss valley. Jin, you are in love with Ling Li, Master. If he can come back alive from the demonic abyss valley, I will personally hold a wedding for you too. Mu Jin was stunned. However, she hurriedly said, I do not wish to marry Ling Li. I only hope that Master will take back his order and not let him go to the demonic abyss valley. Even if I have to use my life in exchange for a chance to redeem himself. You are willing to die for him? I am. Chapter 1824. Crossing Heaven Domain. Eternal landed steadily, and all sorts of music could be heard. At this moment, the League of Stars and Seas military band lined up neatly, playing and singing to welcome the hero's triumphant return. Crack! The cabin door slowly opened, and a blast of air spread out. The Sect of All Times Patriarch Jun Changshao walked down with his wife, Rose of Flowers. He smiled and received the flowers from the children, and then waved to the enthusiastic crowd to thank them. Without a doubt, he led the Sect of All Times disciples to participate in the competition and won 20 spots in the finals. He was regarded as a hero in the Crossing Heaven domain. Jun Patriarch. Vice Leader Peng gave a thumbs up and said, amazing. Not bad, not bad. It was rare for Jun Changshao to be so low-key. That day, in order to celebrate the Sect of All Times' victory, Gu Tianxing held a grand banquet at the League of Stars and Seas. All the tyrants were invited to participate. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were in formal attire. During the banquet, there were always experts toasting and praising them with the words, heavenly prodigies, rising stars of the future. The disciples were praised. Jun Changshao had a lot of face. So, in a good mood, he completely let go of his alcohol and was carried back. Yi Xingchen also drank a lot. Although he was no longer the supreme of the wine Dao after changing his body, he had gradually adapted to it after many years of tempering. In fact, Night Emperor wanted to get drunk for this battle. It did not matter even if he ran to Spirit Beast Peak. At least he could get drunk to relieve his worries. Ever since he saw Jia Lingyao's name on the screen, Yi Xingchen's mind was in a mess. The more he did not think about it, the more it appeared. The more he wanted to forget, the more vivid it was. Uncomfortable, tangled. After the banquet ended, Yi Xingchen stood alone on the mountain. What happened in the sky spill domain surged into his mind again. It was so clear and so real. The next day, He Wudi entered the Tianji secret realm. Under the influence of the powerful nature of heaven and earth in the eternal world, his strength had improved by leaps and bounds, but he had not made any substantial breakthrough in his realm. Therefore, if he wanted to reach a higher realm, he had to rely on it. He was late. The heaven's secret realm was filled with people. There were core disciples like Yi Xingchen, Xiao Ziji, and Long Xiang. They had been stuck at the peak of the truth-seeking realm for a long time. Since eldest senior sister could make a breakthrough, they must be able to do it too. Although the Tianji secret realm was powerful, it had restrictions. Only those at the peak of the truth-seeking realm could enter. Therefore, many inner and outer disciples could only look forward to it anxiously. There was one thing that was strange. Most of the core disciples had come to cultivate, but Su Xiaoma was nowhere to be seen. Yes. He was in the discipline hall. As for the reason, it was naturally because they purposely went easy on him during the competition. Jing Ji and Mao Xiaodao were equally miserable. The two of them once again entered the latrine with brushes and shovels. From this incident, it also proved that Go Sheng was a man of his word. If he said he would punish, and he would not tolerate it. Phew! In the study, Jun Changshao opened his eyes. After entering the heaven's secret realm, every time he meditated, he would feel as if his soul had ascended to heaven. However, when it rose to the highest point, it was pressed down by some kind of force. That power was like a divine power that couldn't be blasphemed. No matter how much Guzi tried to attack, he couldn't find any flaws. Uncle! What's going on? Jun Changshao found Gu Tianqing and told him about the situation he encountered. It's normal. Uncle Gu said, I'm in the same situation. It's said that only by breaking through that obstacle can one be qualified to step on the path to immortality. Oh? Jun Changshao said in surprise, the force that prevents the soul from ascending to a higher realm? Gu Tianqing shook his head and said, to be exact, it leads to a higher world and even pursues immortality. Immortality? Jun Changshao touched his chin and said, it's fascinating. He was also a layman. If he had to die to survive, he would definitely be more willing to seek immortality. Gu Tianqing put down a thick stack of documents and said, I've gathered the list of the contestants who advanced to the finals for each element. It briefly records their strength and specialties. Let the disciples know more about them so that they can know themselves and their enemies. Uncle, you're too kind. Jun Changshao put the documents into his space ring and said, I'll go back and study it now. Right. Gu Tianqing said, I've already discussed with the Mountain Sea Realm Lord to hold a wedding for Gua in spring next year. Jun Changshao, who walked to the door, almost fell. Then, he said with a broken face, Uncle, Chaoshi is only 12 or 13 years old. Isn't it a little too early to get married? He'll be 14 next year. He'll be an adult. Jun Changshao said speechlessly, marriage is not a game. Uncle, you'd better ask for Chaoshi's opinion. There's no room for discussion. Gu Tianqing said, he must get married. Why? Jun Changshao was a little confused. His life and death brother was just on the rise in martial arts. If he suddenly got married, it would definitely affect his future. Nephew. Gu Tianqing walked over, patted him on the shoulder, and said, I don't want my son to follow in your footsteps. Jun Changshao was puzzled by his words. Gu Tianqing walked out of the hall, looked up at the sky, and said with a serious expression, if living beings want to live longer, they must go against the heavens. Although they can get what they want in the end, they will also be punished by the heavenly Tao and lose the ability to reproduce. Jun Changshao was silent. He had heard about the punishment of the heavenly Tao, and he also knew that the stronger one was, the lower the chances of having children. Sigh. Gu Tianqing sighed and said, Uncle traveled all over the upper universe in search of heavenly materials and earthly treasures. In the end, he was lucky enough to have a son. Therefore, Gua must get married as soon as possible and carry on the Gu family's bloodline. Jun Changshao understood. The reason why Uncle Gu wanted him to get married quickly was to continue the Gu family's bloodline when he was still young and was not punished by the heavenly Tao. However, what does this have to do with me? Why did I follow in his footsteps? Nephew. Gu Tianqing said, you have been married for decades, but you still have no children. You should be able to deeply understand the pain of being punished by the heavenly Tao. Jun Changshao almost vomited blood. He understood. He completely understood. Not letting Chaoshi follow in his footsteps meant that he was afraid that he would not be able to have children. Uncle! Jun Changshao howled, you misunderstood. Gu Tianqing patted him on the shoulder again and said, there's no need to explain too much. After all, it will take tens of thousands of years for me to have children. No! Jun Changshao was about to explain, Uncle. Gu Tianqing leaned over and whispered, I have a folk prescription here. Do you want to try it? Jun Changshao covered his head with his hand and howled in his heart, in Uncle's eyes, I am suffering from an illness. Here. Gu Tianqing stuffed a prescription into his hand and said, the medicinal materials inside are very rare. Whether you can find them or not depends on your luck. Jun Changshao was speechless. He knew that his uncle had good intentions, so he could only accept it and leave. On the way, he casually threw it into the space ring and affirmed in his heart, I don't need this folk prescription. Chapter 1825. Bang! Gu Xiaoxi pushed the door open and roared, I refuse. He had already learned from Jun Changshao that he was going to marry a plastic surgery freak next year. Naturally, he would not agree. After all, he had to cultivate martial arts and participate in the finals of the Universe Holy War. Your refusal is invalid. Gu Tianqing put down his teacup and said. Father. Gu Xiaoxi roared, I want to cultivate, I want to become stronger. After marriage, it won't hinder you from cultivating, and it won't hinder you from becoming stronger. Gu Tianqing turned his head and said, if you find it troublesome to take care of the child, father and mother will help take care of him. Gu Xiaoxi hugged his head, his spirit completely collapsing. Son. Gu Tianqing said seriously, our Gu family needs you to continue the family line. When he was young, he did not have any concept of reproduction and only yearned for martial arts. However, the longer he lived, the more he understood how important it was to continue the family line. Gua was still young. If he married early, he would not be punished by the heavenly Tao. Therefore, he hoped to see a house full of children and grandchildren in his lifetime. I won't get married. Gu Xiaoxi rushed out of the door, clearly unable to understand his father's difficulties. Sigh. Gu Tianqing sighed. Mother Gu said, the child is still young after all. Perhaps he will be sensible next year. I hope so. Although the old couple was a top powerhouse in the upper universe, they still had the attitude of mortals who were worried sick for their son. Gulp. Gulp. In the Sect of All Times cafeteria, Gu Xiaoxi gulped down drunken dreams in large mouthfuls. He was very irritated and needed to drink to relieve his worries. Yi Xingchen was sitting beside him. He was also very irritated and was also gulping down wine. One was conflicted about the past, the other was conflicted about marriage. At this moment, they could be considered to be in the same boat. Boom! Suddenly, Jun Changshao punched Night Emperor out of the cafeteria and sat down. He snatched the wine jar from Gu Xiaoxi's hand and said, although you're almost an adult, you're still not at the age to drink. Brother. Gu Xiaoxi said sadly, I don't want to get married. I know. Jun Changshao took a sip of drunken dream. Gu Xiaoxi said, why don't we leave the crossing heaven world? Running away from home again. If I don't leave, I'll be marrying a plastic surgery freak next year. Do you not want to get married, or do you not want to marry Qing Qiulin? This question stumped Gu Xiaoxi. That's right. What was it for? Brother. Jun Changshao said, Qing Qiulin has both looks and status. How is she not good enough for you? Gu Xiaoxi didn't say anything. Although he already understood that the ugly freak he saw for the first time was just a servant pretending to be her, he was still traumatized. Whenever he saw Qing Qiulin again and again, he would think that she had undergone plastic surgery. Living in this world, sometimes you can't care too much about yourself. You have to know how to care about others, especially your family, Jun Changshao said seriously. Gu Zhaoxi said, brother, do you agree to my marriage? Your marriage is up to you, Jun Changshao said. However, he added, if it's because of the race, there's no need to reject the marriage. After all, I know. Gu Zhaoxi said, sister-in-law isn't human either. Jun Changshao roared, we're talking about your problem. Why are you talking about me? Sigh. Gu Zhaoxi rested his chin on the table and said, I'm quite envious of you. You can marry the woman you like, unlike me who didn't have the right to choose since I was born. Uncle is thinking for you. I know, but I don't have feelings for Qing Qiulin. Rose of Flowers walked over and sat beside Jun Changshao. She smiled and said, feelings can be nurtured. Gu Zhaoxi was silent. Boom! At this moment, the door of the cafeteria was violently torn open. Qing Qiulin walked in angrily on her high heels and said, Gu Zhaoxi, I'm not worthy of you. Jun Changshao saw this and tactfully pulled Rose of Flowers away. After a while, bang bang sounds came from the cafeteria. The violent energy came wave after wave, shocking the disciples who passed by. What's going on? Lu Wancher rushed over and knew that Elder Gu and Qing Qiulin were inside. She immediately turned around and announced loudly, dinner will be delayed by 2 hours. Huff huff. Huff huff. While Gu Zhaoxi was being abused, He Wudi, who was sitting in the Tianji secret realm, kept on leveling up. Junior brother, he is about to break through. Su Xiaoma and the others said enviously. Li Qingyang and Lu Qianqian needed pen and ink to describe their leveling up. He Wudi didn't need to do so at all. After all, he had been through it before. To be exact, as a powerhouse whose level was reset to 0, unless he broke through a realm that he didn't reach in his previous life, he would just have to go through all the previous levels again. Huff! After successfully leveling up, He Wudi let out a breath of turbid air. There was no surprise or excitement. Instead, he just looked at it with a normal heart. He Wudi walked out of the secret realm and looked up at the blue sky. He clenched his fist and said, I'm one step closer to returning home. Invincible. At this moment, Jun Changshao's voice rang in his ears. Come to the study room. Creak. He Wudi pushed the door open and walked in. Jun Changshao clasped his hands together and said with a smile, you broke through. He Wudi saw this and immediately became nervous. Patriarch. He said with a bitter face, I really don't have any more secret manuals. I'm not looking for secret manuals. Jun Changshao said, I have a very serious matter to ask you. Not the secret manuals? He Wudi immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Jun Changshao tapped his fingers on the table and said with a serious expression, since you came from a high-level plane, do you know how to enter the land of eternal life? Prying into a level higher than Tianji can obtain the qualifications to step on the path of eternal life. Then, you can enter the land of eternal life. He Wudi said. There's no other way. No. He Wudi's expression changed. He said in surprise, Patriarch, you're not planning to repeat the same trick and sneak into the land of eternal life, are you? No. Jun Changshao said, the readers will say that I'm repeating the same trick. Then there's no shortcut. He Wudi said. What I mean is, Jun Changshao said, is there a shortcut to prying into a level higher than Tianji? I won't sneak into the land of eternal life. I'll take another shortcut, okay? He Wudi muttered in his heart, is there a difference? After a moment of consideration, he said, I don't think so. He didn't dare to give a definite answer. After all, the world was big and there were all kinds of strange things. Who knew if there was a shortcut to prying into that level? Oh right. Suddenly, He Wudi thought of something and slapped his forehead. If there really is a shortcut to prying into a level higher than Tianji, the only thing I can think of is, the 7 mysterious sunglow broken scroll. What do you mean? Jun Changshao asked. He Woody said, Senior Qishuan once said that the 7 incomplete scrolls contained his understanding of the heavenly Tao. If the fated ones could comprehend the mysteries within, they would be able to solve any problems in martial arts. You mean, if I comprehend the mystery in the scrolls, I can pry into a level higher than Tianji? Jun Changshao said. That's right. He Woody said solemnly. Chapter 1826. He Woody's words moved Jun Changshao's heart. Since he had inherited the Shenyuan domain and had dominated the star system competition, it meant that he would face the celestial devil emperor sooner or later. It would be best if he could break through to a higher realm as soon as possible. To put it bluntly, Jun Changshao had just entered the divine mystery realm, and he was already thinking about the next realm. It was not to search for eternal life but to have the ability to fight against the enemy. However, He Woody said, I don't recommend Patriarch to comprehend the remnant scroll now. Why? Jun Changshao asked. Because, He Woody said with a serious expression, the remnant scroll left by Senior Qishuan still hides the mystery of entering the Saint Venerable realm. The strongest realm in the land of eternal life? Jun Changshao asked. Yes. Jun Changshao was shocked. Although he had not been to that world, there were levels, and it was the strongest level. Everyone would definitely yearn for it. Senior Qishuan had integrated his understanding of the Great Tao into the remnant scroll and even hid the mystery of the Saint Venerable. Such a powerful person, could he be my father? The system said, why is your face so big? I understand what you mean. Jun Changshao said, instead of comprehending the mysteries of the remnant scroll with my current realm, I might as well enter a higher realm to comprehend it. That's right. He Woody nodded. The mysteries left by Senior Qishuan in the remnant scroll were the greatest opportunity in the world. Once comprehended, it would be gone. It had to be used at the most appropriate time, such as after breaking through to the Saint Venerable realm. He had thought the same back then and even went against the principle of staying low to snatch the remnant scroll. In the end, his level was reset to 0. That's not right. Jun Changshao said, if I comprehend the mysteries, will I directly enter the Saint Venerable realm? He Woody almost fainted. As a patriarch, I'm really daring to think about it. Even if this conjecture was true, the upper universe could not accommodate a Saint Venerable. After He Woody left, Jun Changshao took out the 7 incomplete scrolls. In fact, he had long known that there was a profound mystery hidden within. Every time he broke through a great realm, he would pry into it, but in the end, he didn't get anything. I don't understand. I still don't understand. Jun Changshao spent the entire night researching and howling in pain. The system said, this kind of remnant book that contains profound meaning is the same as cultivation. You never know when you'll be able to comprehend it in a daze. That's true. Jun Changshao gave up on comprehending and focused on the development of the sect and the cultivation of the disciples. Swish! Swish! In the bamboo forest, the sword light was as fast as lightning. Clang! After a while, Zhou Hong sheathed his sword and stood with his head lowered amidst the dancing leaves. He looked like a swordsman of a generation. Pa pa pa! The falling leaves suddenly separated into strips. The size and scale were just right, as if they had been uniformly divided by a fixed machine. Jian Xiaohong opened her mouth in disbelief. Beside her stood a disheveled old man. He narrowed his eyes as he looked at Zhou Hong. His gaze was similarly suffused with surprise. Although this person was a little sloppy, he was famous in the ruins of End and even the entire upper realm. That's right. He was the ruins of End sword saint that even Gu Tianqing had to respect. There was no sword energy around Jian Guishu. At first glance, he looked like an ordinary old man. Kid, he said in a deep voice, who taught you the Ling Jian divine art? Zhou Hong was rather surprised. Senior, how do you know this sword art? Cut the crap. Jian Guishu said, answer me, who taught you? This sword art is a unique secret manual of the sect of all times, Zhou Hong said. Bullshit. Jian Guishu roared, I created the Ling Jian divine art. Zhou Hong was at a loss. It's clearly a martial art of my sect, but he insists that he created it. This swordsman is a little shameless. Humph. Jian Xiaohong said, no wonder the secret manual is gone. So it was stolen by the sect of all times. The surprise she showed just now was not because Zhou Hong's sword art was superb, but because it was clearly a martial art created by her grandfather. How could an outsider learn it? Miss Jian. Zhou Hong said, please don't slander me. As a disciple of the sect of all times, he naturally could not allow himself to be slandered. But the truth? Forget it, let's not talk about it. Little Du gets angry at the mention of it. He would probably point at Go Sheng's nose and scold him for 3 days and 3 nights. How long have you been cultivating this Ling Jian divine art? Jian Guishu asked. More than 30 years. What? Jian Guishu's eyes widened. Impossible. Jian Xiaohong said, although the Ling Jian divine art was created by my grandfather on a whim when he was young and there are many imperfections, how can you comprehend it in just a few decades? It's fine if you don't believe me, Zhou Hong said. I do. Jian Guishu said. According to the time the sword art was lost, it was exactly 30 years. He was sure that Jian Guishu was not lying. Grandfather. Jian Xiaohong was still doubtful. How can he do something that even I can't do? Jian Guishu smiled and said, although your talent in the sword Dao is strong, there's always someone better. It's not like there aren't people stronger than you in this world. Jian Xiaohong was a little unconvinced and secretly glared at Zhou Hong. Kid. Jian Guishu said, since you can cultivate the Ling Jian divine art, it proves that you and I are fated. Are you willing to acknowledge me as your master and cultivate the sword Dao? No. Zhou Hong said, I want to return to the sect. Jun Patriarch was right. This guy has become a fool from practicing the sword, Jian Xiaohong said in a low voice. Her grandfather was known as the top sword Dao expert in the upper universe. Many people dreamed of becoming his disciple, but he was actually unwilling. I won't force you. Jian Guishu picked up the leaves on the ground and said, you can leave at any time. Whoosh, the leaves flew over and brushed past him. In slow motion, one could clearly see that wherever the leaves passed, cracks would appear in space. This did not seem to be anything special. Anyone who entered the truth-seeking realm could do it. However, Zhou Hong stood rooted to the ground in shock. It was clearly just a casual wave, and there was no sword energy eruption. Why did the leaves contain an extremely powerful sword energy when they passed by him? A powerhouse. Are you curious why a leaf can be condensed into sword energy without sword intent erupting? Jian Guishu smiled and said, acknowledge me as your master and I'll tell you the answer. Zhou Hong looked conflicted. You're really stupid. Jian Xiaohong could not stand it anymore. She walked to his side and winked at him. Hurry up and acknowledge the sword saint as your master. Zhou Hong was still in a dilemma. It was not until he recalled the patriarch's expectant gaze that he cupped his hands and said, I'm willing to acknowledge Senior Guishu as my master. Kneel and kowtow. Jian Xiaohong's tone sounded as if she was exasperated at Lu Xian's failure to meet her expectations. I'm sorry, Zhou Hong said, the patriarch once said that the disciples of the sect of all times do not kneel to the heavens and the earth. They only kneel to their parents. Jian Xiaohong said, a master for a day is a father for life. Forget it, forget it. Jian Guishu said, there's no need to care about the formalities. Humph, Jian Xiaohong curled her lips and said, Grandpa isn't taking in a disciple. He's taking in a master. Speaking of seniority. Jian Guishu said, he's my disciple and is of the same generation as your father. As his daughter, you should call him uncle. Ha! Jian Xiaohong was dumbfounded. From today onwards, you have to call him Uncle Zhou. Grandpa, didn't you just say that there's no need to care about the formalities? Everything else doesn't matter. Seniority can't be messed up. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the Heavenly Secrets mystic realm, the momentum of advancement surged crazily. That's right, someone had broken through again. This time, it was not a core disciple, but a higher-up of the sect, Ryu Sinan. The situation of taking half a step into the next realm would appear one after another. The reason was none other than Gosheng entering the Heaven's secret realm. Let me explain. The system said, when the host is stuck in a certain realm, the disciples will remain on the spot. When he breaks through, the realm he was in will immediately weaken. The higher-ups and disciples will break through easily. This is Gosheng's law of realm advancement. Chapter 1827. Master. In the extreme cave residence, Jun Changshao said with a serious expression, just agree. Jinren Tonggu turned his back to him and said nothing. I know you pursue freedom, but if you join the sect of all times, you can also live in seclusion in the mountains and ignore the world, Jun Changshao said. Jinren Tonggu said, I've already made the biggest concession by coming to the eternal world. I know. Jun Changshao said, but, no need to say more. Jinren Tonggu said, I've made up my mind. You can go back. Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed and left dejectedly. Whoosh! Whoosh! As soon as he walked out of the cave residence, there was a majestic momentum of advancement in the sect, which meant that someone was about to break through. Boy! Masato Kitano wondered, why is your disciple about to break through to the half-step Tianji realm again? The word again was enough to show that advancement was common. To be exact, in just a few months, the sect of all times had people advancing every now and then. At first, Masato Kitano was quite shocked, but he gradually got used to it. However, he still had doubts in his heart, so he took the opportunity to ask. Because. Jun Changshao said seriously, our sect has a trick to advance to the half-step Tianji realm, and the success rate is as high as 100%. Gosheng was not bragging, but telling the truth. As long as one's talent was passable, as long as one was at the peak of the truth-seeking realm, it was only a matter of time before one entered the Tianji realm. What trick? Masato Kitano was tempted. For someone who had been stuck at the peak for too long, if there was a way to advance, he would definitely pay close attention. Sorry. Jun Changshao said, I can't tell you, unless I join the sect. Masato Kitano was speechless. Senior, goodbye. Jun Changshao was about to take off when Jinren Tonggu's voice came from the cave. Are you sure that the trick you mentioned can help you break through the half-step? If it's fake, how can there be people who repeatedly break through? Gosheng asked. Jinren Tonggu walked out of the cave and said, in order to verify the authenticity, I have decided to join the sect of all times. Jun Changshao was elated. Then, he looked at Masato Kitano and asked, where is Senior? I'm willing. Masato Kitano looked calm, but in his heart, he was roaring, this old man has finally figured it out. Recently, many disciples of the sect of all times had achieved breakthroughs, and he could not wait any longer. However, Jinren Tonggu had not relented, and he could not be so thick-skinned as to join. Ding! Ding! With the stamp of the seal, the formalities were completed. At this point, Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano had officially joined. After returning to the sect of all times, Jun Changshao immediately announced that the two of them were appointed as Grand Supreme Elders. They could live in the sect or in the mountains. To be honest, peak truth-seeking realm cultivators like Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano were already considered ordinary in the sect. There was no need to pull them in at all. Why did Gosheng repeatedly invite them to join? Because they were master. Because they had helped him before. Now that Jun Changshao had absolute strength, he naturally would not be ungrateful. Moreover, Jinren Tonggu had taken the blame for him many times in the past. Now that he had the ability, he had to help him break through to a higher realm. Don't think that this was whitewashing Gou Sheng's reputation. In fact, whether in the lower realm or the upper realm, everyone who had feelings for him had benefited in the end. It was a perfect example of what it meant to be good to others. The Tianji Arcane Realm. Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano sat cross-legged on the ground, feeling the profound meaning of the Tianji Arcane around them. The shock in their hearts grew stronger and stronger. It was not until they experienced it that the two of them completely understood why so many disciples broke through every now and then. It turned out that this trick was too terrifying. It could even simplify the profound meaning that they could not comprehend in their lifetime. Your disciple repeatedly urged you to join the sect, but you insisted on pursuing freedom. Now you regret it. Masato Kitano said. That little bastard. Jinren Tonggu said angrily, why didn't you say that there was such a good place for martial arts earlier? In fact, Jun Changshao also wanted to lay his cards on the table. However, it was a sect secret. If it was leaked, his memory as a patriarch might be erased. Therefore, when Gou Sheng recruited famous talents, he never mentioned any awesome arcane realms or facilities in the sect. He either relied on Aria's whip to move them or Lu Wancher's food to tempt them. It's okay, it's okay. Masato Kitano said, it's not too late. With the existence of the Tianji Arcane Realm, the two of them were very confident. As expected. A month later, Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano successfully entered the half-step Tianji Arcane Realm. When they felt the stronger power, they could not stop their tears from flowing. After being stuck for tens of thousands of years, they finally got what they wanted. Without the help of the Tianji Arcane Realm, the two of them would probably be stuck in the same spot until their souls returned to the nine heavens with regrets. Don't get too excited. Jun Changshao said, this is just the beginning. That's right. Jinren Tonggu said with a determined gaze, there are higher realms waiting for us to explore. The Tianji Arcane Realm. It was not only used for martial artists to break through the half-step, but more importantly, it was used to peak at the highest level of the upper universe. Therefore, its value was not completely squeezed dry. The higher-ups and disciples who broke through the half-step could still cultivate in it until they entered the Tianji Arcane Realm. Gou Sheng still remembered that when he just completed the epic mission, he was only given one arcane realm. Now, it was definitely an epic-level arcane realm. In short, it was sure arcane. Patriarch, Elder Sun has broken through. Patriarch, Elder Jiang has broken through. Patriarch, Junior Brother Long has broken through. Patriarch, Madam has broken through. In the next half a year, the higher-ups and disciples of the sect of all times broke through again and again. The number of people who entered the half-step Tianji Arcane Realm was constantly increasing. It was a pity that the system interface did not show the combat power of the sect. Otherwise, it would have doubled from half a year ago. Patriarch Yuan Gongzi said, according to the statistics, the sect of all times currently has 30 half-step Tianji Arcane Realm cultivators. According to the current development, the total number of people who have broken through will reach 50 in half a year. Not bad, not bad. Gou Sheng smiled. As the highest realm in the upper universe, the Tianji Arcane Realm was extremely rare. Therefore, the half-step Tianji Arcane Realm was undoubtedly the mainstream of the current peak level. The sect of all times had dozens of them. That was definitely terrifying. Let's use an analogy. At this moment, if the first fleet of the astral spirit world that invaded the upper realm came again, even if they summoned 10,000 truth-seeking realm cultivators, it would not be enough to defeat the sect of all times in a few minutes. We're still far from it. Jun Changshao said, we don't know how strong the astral spirit world is for now. We can only increase the strength of the sect as much as possible. To deal with a plane of this level, Gou Sheng would not recklessly challenge it one-on-one. It would only be fun to rely on numbers and realm to crush it. Give us some more time. Leaning back in his chair, Jun Changshao covered his face with one hand and said with a ferocious expression, "I will lead thousands of half-step Tianji arcane realm cultivators to descend on the astral spirit world and ask them loudly, 'Are you afraid?'" Ka-keek. Keek-keek. Eerie laughter echoed in the study, sending chills down the spines of the disciples passing by. The next day, Jun Changshao handed many designs to Yuan Gongzi and ordered him to find a tailor to make hundreds of thousands of sets in the shortest time possible. The school uniform design this time was not as uniform as the previous generation. Every elder's peak, every hall, and even the inner and outer sect disciples had different styles. The colors were red, purple, and blue. It was a riot of colors. As for what style it was, it would depend on how the comic artist drew it and how the readers imagined it. "It's decided," Jun Changshao said. "The school uniform will be changed every 50 years. The new comic artist silently took out his kitchen knife as if he wanted to chop this dog on the spot. After all, changing the school uniform every time would require a new design and color. There were more than 100,000 disciples in the sect. It was definitely a huge project. Little Du said, "Why would there be a comic artist foolishly drawing one by one? In the scenes with many characters, he would either draw shadows or copy and paste. It's time to collect the school uniform." On the peak, Su Xiaoma shouted at the top of his voice. "Whoosh! Whoosh!" All the disciples went to the front of the main hall and queued up to collect the school uniform. Hall Master Z. Just as Z was about to collect the exclusive school uniform of the Spirit Beast Hall, Yuan Gongzi suddenly pressed on the back of his hand and said seriously, "The materials used for the new school uniform are extremely expensive. If one is damaged, 100,000 beast cores will be deducted." The corner of the Purple King's mouth twitched. After collecting the new set of school uniforms, he returned to the Spirit Beast Peak and called for Elder Nyo and the others. He placed his hands on his waist and yelled, "From the moment the new school uniform is worn, all of you have to cherish it like your own life. Whoever dares to damage it will be severely punished. Yes. Collect it one by one." Nighttime arrived. After Hallmaster Z settled the internal affairs, she returned to her bedroom and carefully took off the brand new school uniform. She then hung it on the wardrobe with a clothes hanger before quietly closing and locking it. Additional note, there were 2 sets of first-generation school uniforms that had been mended for 3 years. To cherish the school uniform to such an extent, it was simply insane. Rumble. In the middle of the night, there was a sudden commotion. Hall Master Z, who was in deep sleep, suddenly woke up from her bed. A normal person would instinctively think that there was an earthquake and would immediately run out of the room. That was exactly what Z did. However, when she ran out, she carried the locker on her shoulder. Only when she reached the safe zone and made sure that her new school uniform was safe and sound did she raise her hand to wipe the sweat off her forehead. "You scared me to death." The scene changed. In the inner courtyard of the Spirit Beast Hall, Elder Nyo and the others were carrying the wardrobe and wiping off their sweat. As for the commotion earlier, it was caused by Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others playing football at the main peak's martial arts field. Chapter 1829. The eternal world was developing in an orderly manner, and the disciples of the sect of all times were improving their realms in an orderly manner. Jun Changshao, who had nothing to do, often sat on the mountain peak to feel the new understanding of heaven and earth after breaking through to the divine mystery realm. It was very mysterious and special. The land of immortality. What kind of place is it? Can I go there in my lifetime? Jun Changshao longed for power, even though he relied on cheating to improve his realms. Don't think so far ahead, the system said, focus on the present and how to complete the main mission. Speaking of the main mission, Jun Changshao was angry. The progress of the mission had been stuck for a long time. Even when the Universe Holy War preliminaries were fast-forwarded, there was no progress. I can only rely on the finals. Maybe I can improve if I win the championship, Gou Xing said to himself. It's hard to say. The system said, this kind of competition is limited to young geniuses. It shouldn't have anything to do with dominating. Milk. Jun Changshao said, continue to milk. The system was not angry, nor did it roar. It said, in my opinion, the safest way for the host to complete the main mission is to kill the Celestial Devil Emperor. Jun Changshao fell into silence. Gu Tianqing showed fear when mentioning that guy, which meant that the upper universe was very powerful. If he could kill him, he might be able to complete the main mission. It seems. Jun Changshao rubbed his face and said, even if I don't inherit the Shenyuan realm, I will still be his enemy. Jun Patriarch. A voice came to his ear, the leader wants you to go to the main hall. Whoosh! Jun Changshao returned to his room from the eternal world and replied, got it. In the main hall of the League of Stars and Seas. Jun Changshao walked in. At this moment, not only Gu Tianqing, but also Vice Leader Peng and other high-level officials were there. They all looked serious. Uncle, what's the matter? Jun Changshao sat down and asked. See for yourself. Gu Tianqing threw a letter to him. This was a letter of challenge. The content was as follows, in 3 days, I will come to your realm for a battle. The signatory was the Celestial Devil Emperor. Seeing this, Jun Changshao's expression became interesting. Just a moment ago, he was still thinking about that guy. Now, he suddenly came to declare war. In my opinion. Vice Alliance Master Peng said with a solemn expression, the demonic emperor suddenly sent a letter of challenge. It should have something to do with his adopted son being trampled on. So, Gu Tianqing said, I'm worried that he didn't come here to challenge me to cross the heaven realm, but... He looked at Jun Changshao and said, to challenge the sect of all times. No way. Gou Sheng was on the verge of breaking down. The celestial demonic emperor was a big boss-level existence. Just because his adopted son was bullied, he was in a hurry to roll up his sleeves and make an appearance. Wasn't this a little too fast? At the very least, give me some time to develop. He's probably worried that you won't be able to do anything to him once you've grown up, so he came here in advance, the system said. Jun Changshao was speechless. Once the villains had intelligence, how were they supposed to play? Kid. Gu Tianqing said, quickly take your people and leave the heaven realm. Uncle. Jun Changshao stood up and said with a solemn expression, if the demonic emperor came because his adopted son was abused, how can I leave as the person involved? If it was in the past, he would definitely run away if he couldn't win. But this was the heaven realm. If the demonic emperor came to target him and couldn't find him, he would definitely take his anger out on this plane and implicate Uncle Gu. Now is not the time to be a hero. Quickly leave before that guy comes. Gu Tianqing urged. The demonic emperor was an ambitious person. He was definitely not a good person. Uncle. I won't leave just like that. Since the demonic emperor has declared war, my sect of all times will accept it. Jun Changshao's attitude was very unyielding. At that moment, even his back view became incomparably imposing. Gu Tianqing was speechless. He originally wanted to continue persuading, but when he met Gou Xing's eyes, he immediately dispelled the idea and changed his words, Uncle will support you. I'll wait. Vice Alliance leader Peng and the other higher-ups stood up and said, we will also support Jun Patriarch. The disciples of the sect of all times represented the heaven realm in the universe sacred war and earned enough prestige. Naturally, they would do their best to help. It was undeniable that although Gou Sheng was sometimes very mischievous and shameless, the friends he made were not bad. At the very least, they would not stand by and watch when he was in danger. And this was his charisma. What should I do, what should I do? After returning to the sect of all times, Jun Changshao began to hesitate. Although he acted very righteous in the League of Stars and Seas, he was actually panicking inside. What are you afraid of? The system said, just do it. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched, I don't have confidence. He had broken through to the Tianji realm. According to the traditional plot, when the protagonist's realm increased, there would definitely be villains who would come to torture him, thus creating some fun. But this time, it was not a small fry, but a big boss, who could stand it. In short, Jun Changxiao did not think that with his current cultivation level, he could fight with the demonic emperor. Unless... He stopped and said with a serious gaze, you help me fight. Chapter 1830. The Sky Devil Emperor was really strong. Just by releasing his aura, he made Jun Changxiao feel pressured. If they fought, the consequences would be unimaginable. No matter how strong he was, a cool breeze brushed the hill. Although Gou Sheng was panicking inside, he was very calm on the surface, which really reflected the self-cultivation of an actor. There was a trace of surprise in the Sky Devil Emperor's eyes at first, and then he smiled sinisterly. I came here this time with the intention of competing with Alliance leader Gu. I didn't expect to meet the patriarch of the sect of all times. It's fate. It's indeed fate. Although Gou Sheng was smiling all the time, he was roaring in his heart, this guy is not here to trouble me. Because of the speculation of Gu Tianqing, deputy leader Peng, and others, Jun Changxiao always believed that the Sky Devil Emperor came this time to avenge his adopted son's abuse, so he had been sulking for several days. In the end, it was his wishful thinking. Huh. The system was amused. Nephew. Gu Tianqing said, since you're here for me, you should leave quickly. Since the Sky Devil Emperor did not come because his adopted son was abused, he would certainly not let Jun Changxiao participate. But the reality? He had already appeared. With 2 pages, he pretended to be an expert and played the zither. How was he supposed to leave? Gou Sheng's current situation was that he had to pretend in front of the top powerhouse, so he had to pretend even if he had tears in his eyes. Sigh. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, in the galaxy's main competition, my sect's disciples defeated your adopted son Ling Li one after another. I thought you came to trouble me this time. This guy. Gu Tianqing was so angry that his head was about to explode. The Sky Devil Emperor had already said that he was here to trouble him, but he had to mention that. Wasn't he deliberately provoking the other party? Indeed. Jun Changxiao wanted to attract the firepower. Anyway, he had already appeared, and it was impossible to retreat. He shifted all the trouble to himself to relieve Uncle Gu's pressure. If it was before, Jun Changxiao's behavior would definitely be labeled as no strength but fucking courting death. What about now? There was only one word to describe it: righteous. For the sake of Uncle Gu, for the sake of crossing the heaven realm, for the sake of all living beings in the world, Jun Changxiao was willing to face such a great evil with his weak body. This spirit. I really can't continue lying. True enough. The Celestial Devil Emperor, who wanted to find Gu Tianqing to spar, heard the guy talking about the galactic competition and remembered that his adopted son didn't win the championship. Anger gradually appeared in his eyes. Very good. Jun Changxiao thought to himself. Only by staring at him would he be able to complete the act. However, it seemed that the fire was still not strong enough. He needed to add some firewood. However, Jun Changxiao said, to be honest, this adopted son of yours is pretty good at taking a beating. He was trampled on by my sect's disciples many times, yet he was still able to return alive. Gu Tianqing, Vice Alliance leader Peng, and the others collapsed. Did this guy think that the Celestial Devil Emperor had a good temper? Was that why she dared to provoke him with her words? Oh, sorry. Jun Changxiao said again, did I hurt your feelings a little? Hee hee. The Celestial Devil Emperor laughed. It sounded very casual, but the monstrous demonic aura around the mountain suddenly pressed down. Jun Changshao was still sitting in the same place, his hand still on the string, but the demonic aura that swarmed over was like a flood of beasts rushing over and over again. The blood in his body was boiling violently, and his sea of consciousness and spiritual defense was on the verge of collapse. Puff! After a while, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Patriarch! Xiao Ziji exclaimed. Yi Xingqian, on the other hand, was full of killing intent. He almost grabbed his weapon and rushed over, but thinking that even the patriarch couldn't withstand it, he would only be asking for a beating if he went over, so he could only suppress his impulse again and again. In the face of absolute strength, if he insisted on going head-on, it would not be reckless but suicidal. Swish! At this moment, the celestial devil emperor withdrew his demonic aura and said with a sinister smile, "To be able to resist the power of this emperor's heart fox, you, the patriarch of the sect of all times, have some ability. No wonder you can cultivate so many outstanding disciples. You flatter me." Jun Changshao raised his sleeve to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. This person is too strong. The system said, the host is no match for him. Jun Changshao said, we're both in the divine secret realm, but why is the difference so big? Nonsense. The system said, how long has he broken through? How long has the host broken through? It's unrealistic to think that he's invincible after entering the divine secret realm. Little guy. The celestial devil emperor said lightly, this emperor is only here to exchange pointers with Alliance Master Gu. I won't ask about the starry sky competition. Jun Changshao howled in his heart, you're not falling for it. The celestial devil emperor said again, the galactic competition has been held many times, and there are already perfect rules. If ordinary martial artists participate and lose, it's because their skills are inferior. Why would this emperor be calculative just because my adopted son was defeated? There was nothing wrong with this statement. As for the projection array, the celestial devil emperor looked at the mountain peak, the array hidden in the void, and said, there's no need to activate it. Fuck. He actually found out. Jun Changshao dared to cosplay as Zhuge Liang, dared to let his disciple cosplay as a page boy, not because he was singing an empty fort strategy, but because he had ordered the array formation hall to set up a projection array early to capture the scene in front of him in real time. A powerhouse at the level of the celestial devil emperor might not be useful in a head-on fight. If he wanted to find trouble with him, he could just question him in front of the projection array. Since it was a competition to exchange pointers, why bother? To put it bluntly, Go Sheng was betting that the celestial devil emperor would not dare to do too much in front of the projection array because of his identity. Judging from the current situation, he guessed right, but what he didn't guess right was that the lines that should have belonged to him were snatched away by that guy in advance. This created a feeling that the other party not only cared about his identity, but also acted very magnanimous, which set off Go Sheng measuring the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Master! Jun Changshao secretly said, I've never seen a master of such a high level. He didn't think that the other party was very magnanimous, deliberately making him vomit blood was proof, but doing one thing behind his back and another in front of others, he was a proper cunning fox. Pressure. A little big. Alliance Master Gu. The celestial devil emperor looked at the League of Stars and Seas and said, in the entire Tsangyan system, you are considered a big shot. Today, I came in person. Can you give me face and exchange pointers? Just a simple exchange of pointers. Gu Tianqing said in a deep voice. The celestial devil emperor said, if I win by chance, your crossing heaven realm can consider submitting to me. The faces of Gu Tianqing and the others all changed. They finally understood the real purpose of the celestial devil emperor's personal visit was to blatantly annex the crossing heaven realm. It is said that the celestial devil emperor has the ambition to rule the upper universe. Today, I see that you live up to your reputation, Gu Tianqing said. The celestial devil emperor smiled and said, I don't know how many years have passed since the upper universe was born. The development of creatures is too casual, and their thinking is too rigid. It's time for someone to guide them to prosperity. And I am the one to guide them. The last few words were said very proudly, as if he was the chosen one. Gu Tianqing said, "If you want to exchange pointers, I will accompany you to the end. If I submit to your celestial devil emperor, then forget it." Alliance Master Gu, are you going to refuse? The celestial devil emperor's eyes became more and more gloomy, completely losing the magnanimity he had when talking to Jun Changshao just now. It was as if he was going to tear off his sheepskin at any time. Sorry. At this time, Jun Changshao couldn't help but speak. Swoosh! The celestial devil emperor raised his hand, and a monstrous demonic aura gathered in his palm. He said coldly, "I am talking to Alliance Master Gu. Unrelated people should not interrupt." Chapter 1831. Jun Changshao interrupted. The celestial demonic emperor suddenly attacked, and the whole process happened in a very short time, leaving no chance to dodge at all. It's over. This was Go Sheng's first thought. Since transmigrating, he had experienced countless storms and waves, but this was the only time he smelled the strongest scent of death. I haven't completed the main mission, I haven't built a good foundation for my son, and I'm going to die like this. Maybe there was still obsession, or maybe it was an instinctive desire to survive, but when the dark energy shattered the void and was about to attack, Jun Changshao shouted in his heart, "Brother Monkey, save me!" Boom! Suddenly, the mountain peak exploded. Terrifying demonic energy burst out, and the space gradually collapsed and caved in, as if turning into a black hole. Jun Patriarch! Deputy Leader Peng and the other higher-ups exclaimed in unison, until they felt the terrible power, and the sadness in their hearts was replaced by trembling. The celestial demonic emperor was so terrifying. Gu Tianqing stood where he was, clenching his fists tightly. Although Jun Changshao had stolen many things from him, he was still the patriarch of Goa, and he found him to be a good person after all. Now that he was killed in front of him, it was hard to accept. "I'm sorry," the celestial demonic emperor said, "I didn't control my power well and destroyed the space system of your world." Not only was there no sincerity in his apology, but he was also deliberately showing off his strength, as if to tell Gu Tianqing that if he didn't cooperate, he would end up like the patriarch of the sect of all times. "You've gone too far." Gu Tianqing could no longer suppress his anger. "I came to fight a little abruptly this time. Well, I'll give Leader Gu a month to think about it. I hope that by then, you and the creatures of the celestial realm can give me a satisfactory answer." With the strength of the celestial demonic emperor, he could easily conquer the celestial realm, but he still chose the most gentle way. After all, his goal was to rule the entire upper universe, not to suppress it in a bloody way, unless the other party didn't cooperate, such as the former Shenyuan realm. After the celestial demonic emperor finished speaking, he turned to leave. "Did I say you could leave?" Suddenly, a cold voice came from the irritable black hole. There was no emotion in his words, nor was there any background music. With just a few words, the atmosphere was instantly rendered to the extreme. If one were to describe it in one word, it would be domineering. The celestial demonic emperor stopped and looked over in surprise. It seemed that he hadn't expected to hear such a voice. Gu Tianqing, Vice Alliance Leader Peng, and the others also turned their heads in disbelief. They thought to themselves, "He's not dead." That's right. Jun Changshao was not dead. He lowered his head and walked out of the black hole step by step. He was wearing a light yellow tiger skin skirt and his fluffy black hair had split ends. The celestial demonic emperor became vigilant. Although this guy looked to be in a sorry state, the aura he emitted was very strange. It was as if he had changed into a different person after being bombarded by his killing blow. Shwa! The celestial devil emperor raised his hand again, condensing the black energy that seemed to come from the depths of the universe. I was too merciful just now. Swish! A powerful beam of darkness shot out. Its power was much stronger than the first time. Clearly, it wanted to kill this guy who was deliberately provoking it. He stated once again. The celestial demonic emperor didn't come to the heaven realm for Jun Changshao. Because in his eyes, this person and the sect of all times were not worth mentioning. When the finals began, more than 80 adopted sons would be enough to deal with him. However, since he was fated to meet him and had repeatedly angered him, he might as well wipe him out. This was not arrogance, this was true strength. If Jun Changshao hadn't activated his second trump card at the critical moment, he would have been finished long ago. What was the second trump card? Find someone to fight for him. After suffering a fatal blow, Jun Changshao didn't change his person, but his soul. The one controlling his body was the Monkey King. This Monkey King was not the Monkey King from the Great Sage set. He was an SSS-level heroic soul from the Heavenly Might's secret realm. His full name was Sun Wukong, the Great Sage equaling heaven from the Huagua Mountain Curtain Cave in the Alai nation of the Eastern Divine Continent. What was going on? It all started when Jun Changshao was facing certain death. At that time, he shouted in his heart unwillingly. On the mythical wall of the Sky Might's secret realm, the macaque holding a stick flickered and turned into a stream of light that pierced through the secret realm, through the plane, and poured into the space between his eyebrows. To put it bluntly, this time, it was not the Great Sage set that came to save the situation, but the mythical heroic soul in the Sky Might's secret realm. What was the reason that made Go Sheng move the heroic soul at the critical moment? Don't worry, I'll explain after the fight. If I don't explain, it means that I've forgotten. There's no need to remind me. Even if I mention it, I'm too lazy to explain. Whoosh, the pitch-black energy burst out, and the collapse of the space became even more serious. Jun Wukong stood with his head lowered, turning a blind eye to the violent power that was attacking him. He even had the time to talk to himself, where's my phoenix wing purple gold crown? Where's my golden armor? Where's my lotus root cloud-walking shoes? Jun Changshao's soul was still in his body, so he chose to remain silent. Forget it. Monkey King suddenly raised his head. His eyes, which refused to accept the heavens and the earth, were full of fighting spirit. Immediately, he patted his ear with one hand and suddenly pulled out a golden light object, sweeping it toward the pitch-black flowing light that was rushing toward him. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The heavens and the earth shook, and the sun and moon lost their light. Boom, puff. 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 Deputy Leader Peng and the others, who were in the League of Stars and Seas, were suddenly disturbed by an extremely violent aura. They could not suppress the boiling blood and spurted it out. They even staggered back more than 10 steps, and their eyes were filled with horror. Gu Tianqing could still hold on, but his face was extremely ugly. Above the vault of heaven, a crack like a natural moat appeared. The abnormally powerful devil chi was suppressed by another force until it completely turned into nothingness. Gu Tianqing and the others calmed down and looked over with a shocked expression. They saw Jun Patriarch standing in front of the demonic emperor, and the golden light in his hand extended to the demonic emperor's forehead. The flowing light gradually weakened, and the original appearance of the demonic emperor appeared. The form of a stick. The two sticks were wrapped in golden pieces, and the middle was similar to black iron. There were dragon patterns and phoenix seal characters engraved on it. Rui Jingu Bang, 13,500 kilograms. The demonic emperor, who was pressed against his forehead, stood there in a daze. Especially when he felt the cold aura, his eyes gradually filled with horror. You can go to hell now. Jun Wukong patted the bottom of the weapon like a palm strike. The Jingu Bang was immediately infused with an explosive force and suddenly rushed forward, ruthlessly piercing the demonic emperor's forehead. Reader, the last big boss before the end is only at this level? Bang! At this moment, the demonic emperor, whose forehead was pierced, suddenly exploded on the spot. There was no blood, no flesh, and no bones. Instead, it turned into black attributes all over the sky and gradually disappeared. Boy! I'll remember you. The gloomy voice echoed in the sky and became weaker and weaker. Gu Tianqing and the others instantly realized that the demonic emperor who came to the heaven realm was not the real demonic emperor, but a doppelganger. Plop! Suddenly, the sound of falling was heard. Jun Changshao, who was still mighty and extraordinary just a moment ago, was lying on the ground like mud. His eyes rolled up and white foam came out of the corner of his mouth. His hands were curled together and trembling violently, as if he was having an epileptic seizure. Pretend to be the most ruthless one, suffer the most ruthless side effects. The strongest of all time, Goshing's second law. Chapter 1832. The Sky Devil Emperor was defeated. He was defeated very straightforwardly, and he didn't even struggle. Unfortunately, judging from the collapse of the body, it wasn't the original body that died, but a clone. However, Gu Tianqing and the others were even more shocked. If it was really a clone with such terrifying strength, wouldn't the original body be able to destroy the heaven, earth, and air? Sky Devil Emperor, Vice President Peng wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said, "How strong is he?" "I don't know." The Great Elder calmed down, looked at the unconscious Jun Changshao, and said solemnly, "I only know that Jun Patriarch is really unfathomable." As soon as this remark was made, everyone agreed. Especially when they recalled the scene of the Sky Devil Emperor's clone being killed with a stick, the shock in their hearts became even more intense. Was this something a human would do? No. This was done by a god. When the Sky Devil Emperor came to the Crossing Heaven realm, he suppressed Gu Tianqing and the others with his aura, which was enough to show that even the clone had terrifying strength, but he was killed by Jun Changshao with a single stick. That scene was extremely shocking. Not to mention anything else. Once the news spread to the upper universe, it would definitely cause a huge sensation. However, the more enjoyable Jun Changshao was pretending to be something, the more miserable his convulsions were at this moment. In the martial arts world, it was impossible to ban cheating, using cheats, and fighting on behalf of others, but since he had obtained power that didn't match his realm, he must pay the price. This was the law of the martial arts world. What are you waiting for? Gu Tianqing shouted, "Hurry up and carry Jun Patriarch back." Swish! Swish! The scene changed, and Vice President Peng and the others carried Jun Changshao back to the League of Stars and Seas. White foam flew everywhere, and his face was still twitching. It was very satisfying. Creak! The closed door opened, and Sun Bukong walked out in a white coat again. He frowned, looking like a doctor who said, "Sorry, we've tried our best." "How is it?" Rose of Flowers hurriedly asked. Sun Bukong said, "Patriarch's situation is not very optimistic." Rose of Flowers suppressed her panic and asked, "Can we go in?" "Sure." Sun Bukong took off his mask and looked up at the sky. With tears in his eyes, he blamed himself. "It's all because my medical skills are not good enough. Woo woo woo." Outside the courtyard, Lu Wancher squatted on the ground and cried. As she cried, she added paper money into the brazier and sobbed, "Patriarch, I will always pray for you until you are safe and sound." Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were pessimistic. Boom! Outside the courtyard, Yi Xingqian punched a tree trunk, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. "Celestial Devil Emperor, just you wait." He secretly swore that if anything happened to the Patriarch, he would remember this hatred until the day he became strong enough to personally kill that guy and comfort the Patriarch's soul in heaven. In a spacious ward, Jun Changshao lay on the bed with a pale face. It was rare that he didn't have that cheeky look that deserved a beating. Instead, from a haggard point of view, he seemed very mature and manly. "The Celestial Devil Emperor didn't come for you. Why do you have to stand up for him?" Rose of Flowers sat next to him and put her hand on his hand. Her tone was sad and a little bit reproachful. "Little Dodo, those readers don't understand you. They keep slandering and mocking you. I know you have unspeakable bitterness in your heart, but you can't prove yourself in a suicidal way. Rose of Flowers said. Jun Changshao lay motionless on the bed like a vegetable. From the current situation, the side effects of being possessed by the mythical level Monkey King in the Arcana land were far greater than using trump cards such as hard to keep away. It was much greater. Jun Changshao was in a coma for more than half a month and still showed no signs of waking up. During this period, Rose of Flowers took care of him meticulously, only hoping that he could open his eyes and wake up. In the main hall, Ryu Sinan, Gong Sun Ho, and other high-level officials gathered together. Because everyone was frowning, the atmosphere was very depressing. Everyone. Elder Wei said, the Patriarch is injured and in a coma. We must take good care of the sect and not make any mistakes. Yes. Everyone nodded. Should we ask League Master Gu again? Ryu Sinan said. My father said so. Gu Zhaoxi said bitterly, there's nothing I can do. After Jun Changshao was carried back to the League of Stars and Seas, Gu Tianqing personally diagnosed him. The conclusion was that there was nothing wrong with his body. As for why he was in a coma, it was not clear. To be exact, Gou Sheng was not sick. It was a side effect of being in a coma. For example, when he used hard to keep away, he had to be out of action for a year or two. Even the best doctor in the world would not be able to cure him. Jun Changshao did not wake up for a long time. The air above the sect of all times gradually became oppressive. The only thing the disciples could do was to cultivate crazily and desperately. Become stronger. Become stronger. Kill the celestial demonic emperor and avenge the patriarch. The sect of all times had a strong cultivation culture to begin with. Now that Jun Changshao was in a coma, the atmosphere was once again stimulated to the extreme. Back then, Yi Xingqian was killed by Empress Lingyao. After being reborn, he cultivated with a heart full of hatred. Now, the disciples and the upper echelons were all Yi Xingqian. Everyone was the Night Emperor. Cough. One night, there was a cough. Jun Changshao, who had been lying in bed for a whole month, finally slowly opened his eyes. An intense pain instantly surged into his sea of consciousness. He wanted to raise his hand, but found that it was pressed down. Rose of Flowers, who was lying on top of him, sensed it. She hurriedly raised her head and saw Jun Changshao's eyelids moving. His sleepiness dissipated. She happily said, "Husband is awake." Her voice cut through the silent night. The disciples outside the courtyard were wild with joy. The Patriarch is awake. The Patriarch is awake. Lu Wanshi and Yao Menjing shouted happily as they took off the mourning clothes on their bodies. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? Jun Changshao, who was lying on the bed, muttered to himself. After a comprehensive examination, Sun Bukong took back the medical equipment and said in confusion, "The Patriarch's body is fine. There's nothing wrong at all." "Then why do you keep talking to yourself?" Rose of Flowers asked. Jun Changshao had been awake for a few hours. She had been by his side the whole time, but she kept repeating 3 sentences. "Maybe," Sun Bukong said, "his brain was stimulated. He hasn't recovered yet." I remember. Jun Changshao suddenly stood up and slapped his forehead. "I am the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong. I live in the mountain curtain cave of Huagua Mountain in Ao Lai. I want to fight my way to the heavenly court. I want to be the Jade Emperor." The disciples were speechless. Isn't this the founder of our sect of all times? It seems like the Patriarch is really stimulated. That's why he's talking nonsense. Old Jade Emperor. Jun Changshao jumped down from the bed and roared, "Wait until I gather an army and fight my way to the heavenly court. I'll smash your Lingshao palace." The system said, "It's over. The host has completely gone crazy." Only it knew that the Monkey King possessed the host and brought him terrifying combat power. However, after removing the relationship, the soul could not bear the high burden and caused a serious backlash. As a result, he replaced himself as the great sage. Some people might not understand. In other words, if the one who possessed the body was Xiang Yu's heroic soul, Jun Changshao might raise the sword to his neck and shout, "Although I'm dead, I'm still the hegemon of Western Chu." Chapter 1833. Who would have thought that Jun Changshao would have such a terrible side effect after hiring a substitute player? What kind of madness was this? He imagined himself as the great sage, heaven's equal every day, and thought about how to fight the heavenly court every day. The only normal thing was that he didn't scratch his head like Monkey King. Otherwise, it would be easy to suspect that he was possessed. He wasn't possessed. It was just that the side effect was that he became crazy. Maybe Monkey King left his memory in Gosheng's mind when he was fighting for him, so he acted strangely after waking up. What should we do? Ryu Sinan and the others stood in the hall and looked at the patriarch lying on the chair, looking like he was in control of his own life. The worry on their faces grew. Sigh. Elder Wei sighed. Everything was fine, but he suddenly went crazy. Everyone. Rows of Flowers walked in and said, "Yuan Gongzi will be in charge of everything for now." Yes. The elders hurriedly cupped their hands. The patriarch was crazy, but the patriarch's wife was still here, so everyone would follow her lead. Husband, Rose of Flowers pulled Jun Changshao out of the hall and said, "I'll take you to the heavenly court." At this time, she could have taken over the management of the sect, but she handed it over to Yuan Feng because she wanted to spend more time taking care of him. Swoosh! Gosheng shook off his hand and shouted, "Monster, don't call me husband." Everyone was speechless. The patriarch was really crazy. He even treated his wife as a monster. Elder Wei thought helplessly, the patriarch is a bit slow when it comes to relationships. Now that he's crazy, I'm afraid there's no cure. Jun Changshao had gone crazy. But life had to go on. Therefore, the sect of all times was temporarily managed by Yuan Gongzi. The various peaks and halls were still operating in an orderly manner. More and more disciples relied on the Tianji secret realm to break through, and their overall strength rose. Hoo hoo! Hoo hoo hoo! In the open space outside the array formation hall, several newly built Starry Sky battleships began to fly, and the results were quite good. Swish inside the War Cavalry Hall, the Diablo battleships were undergoing routine training. Due to the constant improvement in their performance, their combat power was increasing day by day. Swish! Swish! Suddenly, a mech flew up and down, and even did a difficult rotation in the air. It was the most dazzling existence in the Diablo universe. After a while, the mecha landed, and the flowing light weakened. The camera zoomed in on the back of the mech with the number 66 engraved on it. Crack! The hatch opened. Jingji jumped down gracefully. He threw the helmet to the junior next to him and skillfully took the toilet broom. Before he left, he didn't forget to remind him, everything is normal. There's no need for maintenance for the time being. Senior apprentice brother Jing is amazing. I'm afraid we'll have to learn for a few years just to do the spinning in the air. Of course. Senior brother Jing is the first-generation pilot of Mecha number 66. He's definitely the best in terms of piloting. After walking out of the War Cavalry Hall, Jingji stopped and listened to his fellow disciples talking about him. A proud smile gradually appeared on his face. In terms of strength, I'm not as good as second senior brother and the others. In terms of photography, I'm not as good as Li Tian. However, in terms of piloting a mech, Jingji dared to claim that he was the best. Senior brother Jing is so good. Why did he have to clean the toilets? I heard that he deliberately faked his injury and was punished by the patriarch to clean the toilets. His technique is not bad, comparable to senior brother Mao. As expected, gold shines even in the toilets. The junior brothers looked at Jing Ji's back as he gradually disappeared into the distance. Their eyes were filled with deep admiration. In the forging hall, a brand new set of armor was produced one after another. Fan Yezi caressed the equipment that he was responsible for forging. His haggard face was filled with relief. The busiest halls in the sect of all times were definitely the Pill Hall, Array Hall, and Forging Hall. This was because they were constantly researching pills, mecha, armor, and other strategic materials. So, over the years, Hall Master Fan had been working under high intensity. His beard almost reached the ground. His face was so haggard that it looked like he was about to die. In fact, with the current productivity of the sect of all times, it was more than enough to equip the disciples. However, in Jun Changxiao's plan, since he wanted to crush the star spirit world with absolute strength, it was unrealistic to rely on one sect alone. He had to mobilize the entire eternal world and use all the available forces. Therefore, all kinds of strategic materials were actually allocated to the various clans. Not only did he arm the sect, he also had to arm a plane. Everyone, don't say that I took the hall to deliberately fake the scene. Because today's close-up was to pave the way for a better show-off tomorrow. The point was that when Jun Changxiao led everyone to the star spirit world, the scene had to be absolutely shocking. It had to be difficult for painters to cry. It had to comply with three things: martial artists, battleships, and special effects. At that time, I hope everyone will change to a new high-end phone in advance to prevent it from crashing. In front of a waterfall in Iron Bone Mountain, rows of flowers stopped and pointed to the cave residents inside. "Husband, this is the water curtain cave you were talking about." Jun Changxiao had been talking about Huagua Mountain and the water curtain cave crazily, so she ordered Paige to create one according to her own guess. Here came the problem. Jun Changxiao said the name crazily. How could she make it so similar? Because in the past, when he was free and had nothing to do, Go Sheng had told rows of flowers stories, such as Journey to the West and Investiture of the Gods, so she knew more in this aspect. Bullshit. Jun Changxiao said, it's not the water curtain cave at all. Don't deceive me. Although this guy said so, his body was very honest as he walked over. The king is back. The king is back. After passing through the waterfall and entering the cave residence, a group of monkeys surrounded him. Don't ask where they came from. If you asked, they were the actors personally selected by Hall Master Z from the Spirit Beast Hall to accompany the Patriarch's wife to act. Huh. Children, I've made you wait for a long time. Jun Changxiao sat on a chair and crossed one leg. He said loudly, bring me good wine. Smack. Smack. Jars of drunken dreams were neatly arranged. When the seal was opened, the smell of alcohol filled the entire cave residence, making people drool. Come. Drink to your heart's content. The crazy Jun Changxiao really put himself in the shoes of the great sage, heaven's equal. Even the way he drank seemed to be unrestrained. Plop. After 3 rounds of drinking, he fell to the ground drunk. Elder Nyo took off his monkey skin and broke down. Madam, how long do we have to act for? Until he sobers up, Rose of Flowers said. Next, you have to act as the great sage, Demon King Bull, and act as a sworn brother with our husband, Rose of Flowers instructed. Yes. It was a little difficult to act as a monkey, but it was natural to act as a bull. At night, Jun Changxiao slept in the water curtain cave. Because he drank too much, his snoring sounded like thunder. Rose of Flowers came and gently covered him with a quilt. She sat next to him and whispered, Husband, do you remember that on the night of our wedding, I fell asleep while reading memorials? You covered me with a blanket before you woke up drunk and left? Jun Changxiao didn't say anything. Because he slept like a log. Rose of Flowers leaned on the edge of the bed and held her chin with both hands. Her eyes flashed with the luster of the past. She said, I've been asking myself why I fell in love with you. I thought for a long time before I understood. Maybe it was because of my inadvertent action that day. I don't know what you're burdened with that you have to wholeheartedly develop the sect. I only know that you've been avoiding feelings, even if many people misunderstood you. Now, you should have let go of your burdens. And I. At this point, Rose of Flowers got up and gently leaned into Jun Changxiao's arms. She said softly, "As your wife, I will always be by your side and act out a carefree play for you." Chapter 1834. Rose of Flowers began to weave a scene for her husband based on the story she heard in the past. It was a scene where he seemed to be living in a dream and didn't have to rush about in reality. At this stage, Jun Changxiao had the least burden and the least responsibility. He lived his life in a natural and unrestrained manner. The plot certainly couldn't follow the original version of Journey to the West. After all, as the protagonist, Sun Wukong couldn't fight against the Heavenly Court and the Buddha. In the end, he was suppressed under the Five-Finger Mountain. As the screenwriter, Rose of Flowers made a lot of changes to the plot. From beginning to end, the actor, Jun Changxiao, was always in an unrestrained environment. For example, Namo Amitba. In the sky above Mount Huagua, Du Nan, with his shiny head, was cosplaying as the Buddha. He said, "You naughty monkey, why don't you put down your butcher's knife?" This was the 8th episode of Journey to the West, which was directed and written by Rose of Flowers. The original version corresponded to the plot after Sun Wukong wreaked havoc in the Heavenly Court. Old man Tathagata. Jun Changxiao held a wooden stick and pointed at him angrily. "Don't get involved in the grievances between me and the Heavenly Court." Du Nan was silent. He was temporarily pulled to play the role of the Buddha. There was no script and no lines. He had to act on his own on the spot. "What should I do?" Du Nan howled in his heart. "Humph." Jun Changxiao turned the stick and said coldly, "Since you want to meddle in other people's business, don't be impolite to me." After saying that, he jumped up. Whoosh! The power of the true spirit poured into the wooden stick. The powerful energy gathered and broke through the air. "Naughty monkey, don't make trouble." Du Nan struck out a palm in the air. The swastika flickered. According to the patriarch's wife, he had to lose, so he planned to throw the game. However, the golden palm print was overbearingly broken as soon as it touched the wooden stick. The remaining power of the stick, which carried an explosive force, was not reduced. Du Nan's face changed. "It's over." Boom, plop. Du Nan fell heavily in the distance. A deep red stick mark appeared on his face. Before he fainted, he didn't forget to foam at the mouth. "This is not acting." Sigh. Rose of Flowers shook her head. "Take him away." Several disciples quickly rushed over and carried the fainted Buddha actor Du Nan to the medical hall. At this moment, it was filled with injured people. There were people cosplaying as heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals, as well as Li Fei and others cosplaying as the 4 heavenly kings. They were all extras invited by Rose of Flowers. However, in the process of acting, Jun Changxiao went all out and was inevitably beaten up. AI. Su Xiaoma covered his swollen face and said, "Why is the patriarch's strength still there?" "A few more performances and we'll all die," Li Fei said. Not long after, Yi Xingchen, who was cosplaying as Yang Jian, was carried in with the Fangtian halberd. His face had been beaten to the point of being in the mood for love, forcing everyone to turn their heads and say, "That's terrible." Rose of Flowers guided the new version of Journey to the West. Rather than saying that she was cooperating with the crazy Jun Changxiao, it would be better to say that the senior disciples were being beaten up throughout the whole process. Of course. It definitely couldn't just be fighting. There had to be love and hatred. In the nth scene, Jun Changxiao squatted on a stone outside the water curtain cave and took a bite of a peach. He said, "Miss, you've got the wrong person." I'm not Joker. Rose of Flowers, who was cosplaying as Xixia Fairy, looked at him with hidden bitterness and said, "How long are you going to run away?" "What am I running away from?" "Running away from your feelings. I repeat, I'm Sun Wukong, the great sage, heaven's equal, not Joker. Get out of here and stop harassing me." Rose of Flowers knew that it was an act and that her husband had gone crazy, but tears still flowed down her cheeks. That was how the show was. So was the reality. Why is Madame crying? She's too immersed in the role. The disciples hiding in the distant forest whispered. At the same time, they admired the acting of the patriarch's wife. King. Old Ox, who was cosplaying as an old monkey, ran over and said, "You said that you would marry Xixia Fairy." "When did I say that?" "Last year." "Nonsense. How come I don't remember?" Old Ox handed over a sword and said, "King said that he would marry Xixia Fairy if he pulled out the purple and green sword. Since you have my purple and green sword, how dare you say that you are not Joker?" Rose of Flowers said. Jun Changshao ignored her. He grabbed the sword with one hand and pulled it out of the scabbard against the sunlight. He was stunned and said, "You really pulled it out?" "King." Old Ox said, "A king doesn't joke." Jun Changshao threw the sword on the ground and returned to the water curtain cave while cursing. Old Ox saw this and hurriedly sent a message, "Madam, what are we going to do next?" "Prepare for the wedding." Rose of Flowers wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and said, "I want to marry him." Old Ox's mouth twitched slightly. Madame's acting was very professional. On the same day, a group of little monkeys began to decorate the water curtain cave to prepare for the next scene of the great sage's marriage. Little Emo Rose of Flowers said, "My husband often says that your acting is very good." "Ah." Su Xiaoma scratched his head and said, "It's okay." So, Rose of Flowers said, "You will play the role of the bull demon king who steals the bride in the next scene." "Ha!" Su Xiaoma was dumbfounded. "This is the script," Rose of Flowers said. Su Xiaoma took the booklet and opened it to understand that not only did he have to play the role of the bull demon king who steals the bride, but he also had to kill Fairy Xixia in the battle with Joker Bao. This is a villain role. It's a test of acting skills. Is there a problem? Su Xiaoma closed the script and said with a serious expression, "No problem." Jing Ji dared to claim to be the best among the disciples in operating the mecha. In acting, he, Go Sheng, also dared to claim to be the best among the disciples. But stealing the protagonist's wife and accidentally killing her, he felt like he was going to be beaten up. "No, it won't." Su Xiaoma comforted himself in his heart. The patriarch is a straight man. He definitely doesn't understand the feelings between men and women. That night, the scene of the great sage's wedding was on. The water curtain cave was decorated with red and green. The higher-ups and disciples all gathered together to wait for the bride and groom to appear. Su Xiaoma, who was playing the role of the bull demon king, hid in the dark. He had acted in many scenes, but this time he was a little nervous. His palms were sweating. "It's time. Let's welcome the groom." Jun Changshao, who was wearing a bright red wedding dress, was pulled in by the monkeys. His expression was as ugly as it could be. It was obvious that he was very resistant to marriage. "Let's welcome the bride." When the MC's voice fell, everyone subconsciously turned to look. Rose of Flowers was in their field of vision. She was wearing a phoenix coronet and a red veil on her shoulders. She walked slowly in a beautiful manner. She usually didn't like to dress up, but she was already devastatingly beautiful. Now that she was wearing red makeup, she was really beautiful. The people who came to pay their respects were amazed by the peerless beauty of the patriarch's wife. Tsk Jun Changshao snorted coldly. "Bow to heaven and earth." The MC, Elder Wei, shouted loudly. "Wait a minute." At this moment, Su Xiaoma with a ring on his nose appeared. He shouted angrily, "I object to this marriage." He had to admit that the makeup skills were very good. He really looked like the Bull Demon King. Something's wrong. Jun Changshao said warily, why did he change his appearance? Previously, Elder Ox had played the role of the Bull Demon King and even became sworn brothers with him. Today, Su Xiaoma looked quite similar, but there were obvious differences. Cut the crap. The Bull Demon King said, Zixia Fairy is mine. Jun Changshao sat on the table and took an apple. Then I'll give it to you. This sentence directly stunned Su Xiaoma. He then looked at the patriarch's wife for help. It meant that the plot was wrong. How could he act? Bang! At this time, Rose of Flowers threw the phoenix coronet on the ground and looked at Jun Changshao with resentment. Joker, you're too heartless. Please. Jun Changshao said angrily, I've said it 10,000 times. I'm not Joker. Rose of Flowers bit her red lips, and tears flowed down her face uncontrollably. At that moment, her expression, her eyes, and even the most subtle body movements were vividly acted out. The disciples thought that the wife's acting skills were extraordinary. Only Elder Wei and Su Xiaoma knew that she was not acting. She was really showing her emotions. Because whether in or out of the movie, Jun Changshao's performance was still terrible. Okay. Rose of Flowers said angrily, I'm leaving. After saying that, she turned and left. Her hair fluttered, and so did her tears. This was a slow-motion scene. There were no extras in the scene, only Rose of Flowers and Jun Changshao. Ha ha ha. Su Xiaoma clasped his hands and said, thank you for your help. The play was not over yet. Even at the risk of being beaten, he had to continue acting. However, Go Sheng was quite sensible. He didn't seem to be here to rob the marriage. Instead, he turned into a bodyguard and followed behind Rose of Flowers. Stop! When she was about to step out of the water curtain cave, Jun Changshao's voice sounded. Rose of Flowers stopped and was delighted. Husband, do you want me to stay? Take off the robe. I spent a lot of money to rent it from Ao Lai. Plop! Elder Wei fell directly to the ground. The patriarch was crazy, but his stingy character was still there. The problem was, shouldn't he care about his wife at this time? Why should he care about the robe? It's hopeless. Elder Wei said to himself, it's completely hopeless. Rose of Flowers stood in front of the cave and didn't speak for a long time. Tears splashed on the ground one by one. The higher-ups and disciples felt aggrieved and wronged for their wife. Jun Changshao. Suddenly, Rose of Flowers turned around, tore off the robe, and said with tears, am I not as valuable as the rented props in your heart? Su Xiaoma said to himself, my wife even called his name wrong. She didn't call him wrong. At this moment, Rose of Flowers didn't think of herself as Zixia Fairy, nor did she think of Jun Changshao as Joker. Her emotional outburst was not an act. I've always been hoping that you have me in your heart, even if I'm crazy, but... Rose of Flowers smiled. Her smile was pitiful and said, I was wrong. I thought too much. Crack. Jun Changshao sat on the table, chewing an apple in his mouth. It was very sweet. But the more he chewed, the more bitter it was, and the more he chewed, the more his heart ached. In fact, when Rose of Flowers turned and left, Jun Changshao's mind was even more confused. He couldn't tell why. I'm tired. Rose of Flowers folded the robe and gently put it on the table. She said, I quit. She didn't choke with sobs when she said the last 3 words. It sounded flat, as if she had completely let go of the burden in her heart and was truly alone. Crack. Jun Changshao lowered his head and crushed the apple in his hand. In the camera, the back of Rose of Flowers gradually faded away and gradually blurred, as if she would disappear at any time. Everyone was at a loss. They were now completely unsure whether this was an act or not, because the director didn't shout cut. Su Xiaoma. At this moment, Jun Changshao raised his head and shouted, "Close the door for me." Su Xiaoma was stunned for a few tenths of a second. Immediately, he rushed to the door and closed the two stone doors, successfully intercepting his wife who was about to disappear. Jun Changshao jumped down and bent down to pick up the phoenix coronet on the ground. He conveniently picked up the robe and stopped in front of rows of flowers. First, he patted the dust off, then gently put it on for her. He reached out to wipe the tears on her face and said in a soft and low voice, "You're not allowed to quit until the play is over." "You?" Rows of Flowers said in surprise, "Are you crazy?" Whoosh! Jun Changshao directly picked her up and strode to the main hall. He said, "In the play you wrote, Joker and Xixia Fairy must have a perfect ending. Children, play the music." Everyone came back to their senses and hurriedly beat the gongs and drums. Just like that, Joker and Xixia Fairy held their wedding in a joyous atmosphere. When the whole play came to a successful end, the three words, "the end of the play," gradually appeared on the screen, and various subtitles from bottom to top were displayed one by one. Title: The Wedding of the Great Sage in the New Journey to the West. Director, Rose of Flowers. Screenwriter, Rose of Flowers. Lead actors, Jun Changshao, Joker, Rose of Flowers, Xixia Fairy. Actors, Wei Qingfeng, Master of Ceremonies, Su Xiaoma, Bull Demon King. Guest stars, Jing Ji, Maid, Mao Xiaodao, Maid. Post-production, See You in Jianghu. Opening song and ending song, See You in Jianghu. Producer, Reader. Producer, Doryman. P.S. June Rose's love story is also coming to an end like the plot. In fact, I have been hinting many times in the text that Jun Changshao has to suppress his feelings for the sake of developing the sect, and is not a real Iron Man, but it is always misinterpreted by Dogiai and Dodo. As for the love story between Jun Changshao and Rose of Flowers, I hope to write a progressive feeling. You are not allowed to say whether it is good or not, because the pen is in my hand, just like the ticket is in your hand. You can give it or not, but do you think I care? Grandpa, count the tickets. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.